Chapter 649. As a golden giant was killed, the 8 heads of the Yamada no Orochi opened again and spat out 8 words. The Federation is useless. The heroes are shameless. This wasn't the first time these words had appeared. To be precise, it was the 3rd time. Apart from the defeat of the Ice Elemental Spirit King, there was a mythical dimensional creature that challenged Orochi in the middle but was defeated. After that victory, Orochi also spat out the same words. Now that the golden giant had been defeated again, the entire Federation seemed to explode. All public opinion was questioning the abilities of the 6 hero families. If they couldn't even deal with a single Orochi, how could they protect the peace of the Federation? There were even some sharper media outlets that directly use headlines like, "Are the descendants of heroes still heroes?" These headlines strongly criticized the inaction of the 6 great clans. Especially the media in the West District, they bombarded the family clan of gods and the Cape family. The Zhang, Xia, and Dugu families hadn't taken action yet. Although they were constantly doubted, they weren't as miserable as the other 3 families. After all, they had never been defeated. In theory, they still had the ability to win. They were different from the Cape family and the family clan of gods, who had been defeated consecutively. The 6 families also had their own difficulties. Their various schemes and arrangements were all prepared to win the championship. Now, the sudden appearance of Orochi had disrupted their plans. If they exposed their trump cards, it wouldn't be difficult for them to kill Orochi. However, if that happened, they would lose the chance to vie for first place with the other families. Therefore, they could only send inferior mythical companion beasts to fight, but they were still defeated. The Zhang, Xia, and Dugu families were even more depressed. At this moment, the backbone of their families had gone to the southern border dimensional zones. Although there were still others who could fight, the companion beasts were also in the midst of their plans. Exposing them ahead of time would trigger a chain reaction and disrupt their plans. As such, the Federation's situation became very delicate. None of the 6 families were willing to expose their top mythical companion beasts, but they ended up being defeated by Orochi 3 times in a row. It made the entire Federation feel humiliated. From the looks of it, I can only expose some things in advance. Those families are shameless, but our Xia family can't. Xia Dongyue was still hesitating about which mythical companion beast to send. Not only was Orochi proficient in various elemental powers, but it also had a powerful physique. Coupled with its indestructible sword beam, it could be said to be a very well-rounded mythical companion beast. It wasn't easy to defeat it cleanly and beautifully. Why did Luchuan go to the southern border at this time? Xia Dongyue thought gloomily. If Xia Luchuan was around, his companion beasts were the best at restraining companion beasts like Orochi. If the enemy wasn't prepared, it wouldn't be impossible for him to kill them in one strike. Unfortunately, Xia Luchuan wasn't around, giving Xia a headache. The Xia family was not the only one who was having a headache. The other 5 great families were also having a headache. At this point, if the Yamada no Orochi was not destroyed, the reputation of the 6 great families would be tarnished. The few families had the intention of sending their top companion beast to fight, but at that moment, the black cube lit up. The media had been bombarding the 6 families for their inaction, hoping that they could step forward as soon as possible. Just as they were in a frenzy, they realized that the black cube had lit up. They imagined that the 6 families had taken action. However, they soon realized that the person who appeared on the cube screen was Tyrant Behemoth, who had previously forfeited. Why is Tyrant Behemoth out again? Didn't it not dare to accept the challenge previously? It should be challenging other companion beasts, right? Forfeiting means that it already knows that it's no match. Now that it has appeared again, it's definitely not challenging Orochi. Anyone can tell that a companion beast like Orochi is Tyrant Behemoth's nemesis. No matter how powerful its physique and strength are, it can't withstand Orochi's indestructible tail. Everyone imagined that Tyrant Behemoth wanted to challenge other companion beasts and ascend the rankings again, but to their surprise, when the challenge name lit up on the rankings, it was Orochi. What's going on? Didn't he forfeit previously? Why is he challenging again? What kind of play is this? Despite knowing that the companion beast's characteristics are restrained, he still wants to forcefully challenge it. Could it be that our Federation really doesn't have any more powerful companion beasts? Can we only let the restrained tyrant behemoth fight? Instantly, doubts and guesses sounded everywhere. People were discussing why Tyrant Behemoth was challenging Orochi at this moment. Zhou didn't think too much about it. He was also a member of the Federation, so he felt uncomfortable being insulted like this. Of course, the main reason was that Zhou had the intention of competing for the rankings. Furthermore, he could defeat Orochi, who had used Tyrant Behemoth as a stepping stone. After watching the battle between Orochi and the Golden Giant, Zhou already knew Orochi's strength. It wasn't difficult for Tyrant Behemoth to defeat Orochi. It was just a small effort. Not only could he be ranked high, but he could also intimidate everyone. He could also strike at the devils overseas. It was killing 3 birds with 1 stone, so why not? Therefore, Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth and got it to board the cube to challenge Orochi. Is he finally going to come out? Yusuji now looked at Tyrant Behemoth on the cube screen and chose to accept the challenge without any hesitation. She knew that Tyrant Behemoth's owner must have studied Orochi for a long time, but she was confident that with Orochi's characteristics, it could definitely restrain Tyrant Behemoth. With her command, it definitely wouldn't lose. The media all over the world saw Orochi accept the challenge. Instantly, all the major channels and online platforms were broadcasting the cube. Can Tyrant Behemoth win? A little boy held his mother's hand as he stood in front of the big screen by the street and asked worriedly. He will definitely win. His mother comforted him gently. But we've already lost twice. The boy was still somewhat worried. Don't worry. No matter how many times we lose, the Federation will always have a hero who can step forward to save the world. Perhaps that hero is Tyrant Behemoth, his mother said. The boy didn't say a word. He only clenched his fists and looked nervously at the big screen. Boom! Orochi landed in the arena. Its huge body was ferocious and terrifying. Its 8 snake heads raised and its sinister eyes stared intently at Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth still maintained its height of a few meters and didn't gigantify. Compared to the massive Orochi, it appeared somewhat weak. However, everyone knew that Tyrant Behemoth could still gigantify. Its body wouldn't be smaller than Orochi. To everyone's surprise, Tyrant Behemoth didn't enlarge. Instead, it leaped up and threw a punch at one of Orochi's heads. Chapter 650. Orochi didn't underestimate its enemy. The 8 snake heads spat out essence energy bullets of different attributes at the same time. Its 7 tails also danced wildly as they lashed at Tyrant Behemoth. Roar! A roar shook the world. A crown appeared on Tyrant Behemoth's head. Although its body didn't grow larger, its entire body was bathed in a bloody red light, as though it had been augmented by some magic. Bam! 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 Tyrant Behemoth's fists constantly swung out like a storm. The essence energy bullets spewed out by Orochi were blasted apart by Tyrant Behemoth's fists like fireworks exploding in the sky. The 7 snake tails collided with his fist, and a terrifying sound of metal colliding rang out. The snake tails were forcibly sent flying, and the scales on the snake tails were smashed into pieces. Bam! Tyrant Behemoth rushed in front of Orochi and punched its head, sending its entire body flying. Orochi tumbled far away before stopping. As for the snake head, most of it had been shattered by the terrifying power augmented by the violent crown. How powerful! It's even stronger than the Golden Giant. As expected of Behemoth, such strength is really too powerful. I'm afraid no companion beast can match it in terms of strength. Mommy, Tyrant Behemoth is so powerful. It's really powerful. The boy held his mother's hand and shouted excitedly. That's right. It's really powerful. His mother nodded with a smile, but she was still somewhat worried. This was because she knew very well that Orochi's true trump card had yet to be used. As for the snake tail with a terrifying sword beam, it was the nemesis of a physique and strength-type companion beast like Tyrant Behemoth. Many people had the same worry. Orochi's tail sword beam was just too powerful. Up to now, no companion beast had been able to withstand a single strike from the tail. Although Tyrant Behemoth had displayed overwhelming strength, it was hard to say if it could withstand the snake tail's attack. Yusuji now didn't make them wait too long. The moment Tyrant Behemoth charged over again, Orochi suddenly raised its tail. With a cold sword beam, it instantly streaked across the void and slashed at Tyrant Behemoth's body. Everyone knew that the moment that truly determined the outcome was about to arrive. As long as Tyrant Behemoth couldn't withstand the snake tail strike, it would definitely be defeated. Everyone wanted to know if Tyrant Behemoth, which could devour Chimera, could devour the terrifying sword beam. When the boy saw the sword beam formed by the snake tail, he nervously grabbed the corner of his mother's clothes. He had already seen the same plot once. The golden giant had the upper hand, but it had been defeated by the snake tail sword beam. All it could do was admit defeat and flee in a sorry manner. However, to everyone's surprise, Tyrant Behemoth didn't use its mountain-devouring skill. It continued brandishing its fist to meet the shocking sword beam formed by the snake tail. However, at that instant, Tyrant Behemoth's body seemed to shrink again. The strange red light on its body also turned black-red. Tyrant Behemoth's entire body seemed to have turned into a black hole. When light landed on it, it couldn't escape. Clang! Tyrant Behemoth collided with the sword beam, and it immediately shattered. The fist collided with the snake tail. The indestructible snake tail failed to cleave apart Tyrant Behemoth's fist. It only left a sword mark on the fist, but it failed to slice it open. Oh my god, audience, did you see that? Orochi's killer move failed to split apart Tyrant Behemoth's fist. That terrifying killer move that almost killed the golden giant with one strike only left a sword mark on Tyrant Behemoth's fist. Such an injury can't affect Tyrant Behemoth's combat strength at all. Some of the more agitated commentators had already shouted, "Mommy, it blocked it. It blocked the snake's tail." The little boy also shouted excitedly. Before his mother could answer, Tyrant Behemoth had already grabbed the snake tail and exerted strength, throwing Orochi's body up. Bam! Orochi was smashed to the ground. Before Orochi could react, Tyrant Behemoth grabbed the snake tail and smashed it left and right, smashing Orochi's body to the ground like a sandbag. In a few blows, most of its bones were shattered. It was as though it had turned into a pool of soft meat. The snake head turned limp. It's too violent and bloody. Orochi isn't Tyrant Behemoth's match at all. It's constantly being ravaged. Oh my god, I can't believe my eyes. Is that still the terrifying Orochi? In front of Tyrant Behemoth, it's like a slug. Yes, that's it. Kill it, and let those fellows overseas know the true strength of U.S. Federation people. How tragic. After this battle, I don't think those crawlers will be able to open their mouths to spit words again. I can't tell how many heads it has. Or perhaps they have all been smashed to smithereens by Tyrant Behemoth. The streamers from the various media outlets got high as they began to tease. They no longer had the serious expressions they had when they were criticizing. Their words also began to become humorous as all sorts of lewd remarks flew everywhere. In contrast, there were more talents in the audience. Many people watching on the internet sent a large number of bullet screen comments. Orochi is considering which head to use to make a distress call. Oh, sorry. I forgot that it doesn't have hands. What should I do? Daddy, stop hitting. I know I was wrong. Mommy, love me again. Everyone, please make way. I don't want to just see the bullet screen comments. Give me some images. I want to see if Orochi is dead. Everything happened too quickly. Yusuji now never expected the power of Orochi's Wheel of Destiny to fail to even slice through Tyrant Behemoth's fist. She wanted to admit defeat and summon Orochi, but she felt that Orochi was sucked in by a terrifying force. She couldn't summon it back. Bam! With another heavy strike, Orochi's body fell to the arena. Orochi no longer seemed to have any bones as it slumped to the ground. Tyrant Behemoth roared as its body instantly expanded like a small mountain. It was even taller and more majestic than Orochi. With one claw, it picked up Orochi's tail and threw it into its mouth. Ghastly Killer's spirit body appeared on Yusuji Nao's body as a demonic glow emitted from her body. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood as her face instantly turned pale. However, she finally retracted Orochi. In the arena, Tyrant Behemoth's fangs missed. Orochi's body vanished, but this didn't affect the Federation citizens' revelry. Dear viewers, thank you for witnessing this great moment with me. Tyrant Behemoth lives up to its name as a tyrant. It's the undeniable king of companion beasts, the nightmare of all enemies. His tyrant is my king. Thank you, His Majesty Behemoth, for bringing us such an exciting battle. Chapter 651. My Behemoth. My Behemoth. That's my Behemoth. The resentment in Zhang Zhao's heart expanded infinitely. It was a companion beast that should have belonged to him. The entire Federation was guessing who Tyrant Behemoth's owner was. Most people guessed that Tyrant Behemoth was from the family clan of gods or the Cape family. The people of the West District were also proud of this. They expressed that at critical moments, their West District companion beasts were still reliable. Upon seeing Tyrant Behemoth win and its name replace Orochi in 4th place, the boy jumped up and cheered. He pulled his mother's hand and shouted, "Mommy, it won. It really won." "That's right, it won." His mother smiled and nodded. "Mommy, I also want to have a Tyrant Behemoth." The boy looked at his mother longingly. His mother rubbed the boy's head. Powerful companion beasts are unique. Tyrant Behemoth is such a companion beast. When you grow up, you will definitely have a companion beast as powerful as Tyrant Behemoth. Definitely. I can't wait to grow up. But before that, Mommy, can you buy me a Tyrant Behemoth doll? The boy looked at his mother in anticipation. His mother smiled. Of course not. If we can't buy it, we'll produce it ourselves. You can also participate in the design. Really? That's great. I have to design the most perfect Tyrant Behemoth doll. The boy's eyes lit up with excitement. As for the various media outlets, they reported Tyrant Behemoth's victory with all sorts of praises. They didn't hesitate to use all sorts of exaggerated words. The titles of the strongest companion beast in the world, the extremely violent battle pet, the strongest pet on the surface, and so on landed on Tyrant Behemoth. Although everyone knew that Primordial Sword Immortal was still the strongest companion beast at present, Tyrant Behemoth had won a special battle during a special period. It made most people in the Federation acknowledge Tyrant Behemoth psychologically. This psychological recognition had a certain relationship with strength, but it wasn't absolute. Therefore, even with Primordial Sword Immortal and Death of the Underworld ranked ahead, it didn't affect the Federation's citizens from praising Tyrant Behemoth as the Federation's #1 battle pet. As for the 6 families, they increased their investigations, hoping to find Tyrant Behemoth's owner. This battle allowed them to see how terrifying Tyrant Behemoth was. It was a terrifying strength that could truly vie for 1st place. Young Master Wen's Tyrant Behemoth is really terrifying. It looks like he has a chance of vying for 1st place, and Shang said with a smile. And Tianzhua sat there reading documents as if he hadn't heard Shang's words. Zhou naturally didn't know so much. He unsummoned Tyrant Behemoth and entered the desert again under Lu Yun's guidance. Not long after he left Hat City, the mysterious phone vibrated. Zhou took out his phone to take a look and realized that the download of the Netherworld City dungeon had been completed. An icon of Netherworld City appeared on his desktop. Lu Yun commanded the tortoise to advance. Zhou had nothing to do sitting behind him, so he opened the dungeon. He wanted to see the difference between Netherworld City in-game and real life. The blood-colored avatar appeared at the entrance of Netherworld City. The ghostly face on the gates of the Netherworld said the same words as in reality before the door automatically opened. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to enter Netherworld City and stepped on the stone slabs on the long street. He saw the number 366 appear on the stone slabs. It was the same as entering Netherworld City in reality. The only difference was that the blood-colored avatar was the only one on the long streets of Netherworld City in-game. There was no one else. Zhou attempted to activate God's Retreat. Just like in reality, A large amount of taboo power was immediately sucked into the Jade Infant's body. It happened to be used to evolve the Jade Infant. Since he didn't have to worry about death in-game, Zhou gave it a try to see if he would really die after taking all the steps. The outcome didn't disappoint Zhou. After the number of steps on the stone slabs reached 0, God's Retreat could only protect the blood-colored avatar for a few seconds before it exploded and died. The power was completely unreasonable, and there was no way to defend against it. After entering Netherworld City again, the blood-colored avatar appeared at the starting point of the long street. Before the torture chamber opened, Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to grind dimensional creatures for a while. Although the dimensional creatures here were only at the epic stage, their skills were rather interesting. Zhou planned on grinding some companion eggs that he could use for fusion in the future, or perhaps he could grind for some essence energy skill crystals. If he could use them, it wouldn't be a bad idea to practice them himself. Now, Zhou movement technique was already considered top-notch among humans, but he was still lacking in other aspects. Apart from the demonic astral wheel, he didn't have any skills that he could use. City Lord Netherworld said that I can see the real Netherworld City after experiencing all the punishments. What does that mean? Zhou was still guessing at the meaning of the sentence. An hour later, the torture chamber opened, but Zhou wouldn't discover a problem. Although the white, ghost-like imps in-game were also afraid of the Hell King life soul, they didn't have much intelligence. It was impossible for them to help Zhou cheat to obtain steps like in reality. A game is a game, after all. It still has its limitations. It's too rigid. Zhou was somewhat helpless. There was no way for him to cheat. If he wanted to reach the end of Netherworld City, he could only accept the punishment himself. However, the blood-colored avatar shared his feelings. He would also feel pain when the blood-colored avatar was tortured. After some thought, Zhou gave up on his previous plan. He only treated Netherworld City as a place to grind companion eggs and essence energy skills. Thankfully, nothing unexpected happened this time. 2 days later, Zhou finally saw the endless sea of stars that Lu Yun had mentioned. Are you sure this is the endless sea of stars? Zhou looked ahead in disbelief. He couldn't believe that this was the endless sea of stars. In front of him was a small lake in the desert. Although it looked rather clear, such a small lake was much bigger than the artificial lake in the park. How could such a place be called the endless sea of stars? Furthermore, Zhou didn't see any stars here. There weren't even any fish in the water. Furthermore, the lake was very shallow. He could see to the bottom at a glance. There was nothing below it except sand. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like the mysterious and unfathomable endless sea of stars that Lu Yun had mentioned. Don't be in a hurry. You'll know how magical the endless sea of stars is when you take a look at it at night. Lu Yun said comfortably as he sat by the lake, took off his shoes, and extended his feet into the lake. At night, the stars in the sky twinkled. The sky here was especially clear, as though the stars would fall at any moment. Suddenly, Zhou saw a star fall from the sky. Furthermore, it was falling towards them. Sogu. Chapter 652. A meteor descended from the sky and landed on the surface of the lake, illuminating the entire lake. Strangely, the meteor that rushed into the lake at such a fast speed didn't cause any ripples in the lake. Before Zhou, one could see the situation underwater. He saw stars fall from the sky. A large meteor shower fell from the sky and headed for the tiny lake, forming a magnificent scene. Are those really meteors? Zhou couldn't be sure. The starlight fell into the lake, but the surface of the lake was calm. It was as though the endless starry sky contained everything. Can I make a wish? Isn't it said that after seeing a meteor, as long as you tie a knot at the corner of your shirt before the meteor disappears, the wish you make will come true? Junior brother, you can give it a try, Lu Yun said. Zhou shook his head and said, in our hometown, there's no such thing as making a wish with a meteor. Furthermore, there's a taboo that meteors are jinxes. Seeing them is inauspicious and might bring bad luck. Pooey, can't you say something auspicious? Lu Yun said gloomily. Zhou shrugged and didn't say anything else as he looked at the lake. The starlight fell like a river of stars, falling into the lake, forming points of light in the lake. It was as though countless stars had fallen into the lake, making it look like a sea of stars. Zhou condensed the dots of light and was surprised to discover that they were planet-like spheres. These spheres were like miniature planets, and the entire lake was like a starry universe with countless stars. What was even stranger was that the planet-like spheres were still revolving according to a certain pattern. It's no wonder this place is called the endless sea of stars. Looking at the starlight that kept falling into the lake, Zhou finally knew why this tiny lake was called the endless sea of stars. Lu Yun smiled and said, "Don't underestimate such a lake. There are countless stars inside. If you enter the lake now, you will be swept into the sea of stars. It's very likely that you will be lost in the sea of stars forever, never to come out again." Zhou looked around, but he didn't see the tiny palm symbol. Therefore, he asked Lu Yun, "How do you enter the endless sea of stars? Where's the astral combat beast?" "The astral combat beasts are on those tiny balls. Those balls look small, but once we enter the lake, we will realize that those balls are planets. There are all sorts of terrifying astral beasts on them. They range from the mortal stage to the mythical stage. The astral combat beasts are one of the mythical astral beasts." After a pause, Lu Yun continued, "After the meteor shower stops, we can go down. However, you have to follow me when the time comes. Don't take the wrong path. Otherwise, if you get lost in the sea of stars and enter some strange planets, it'll probably be very difficult for you to come out again. I'll take a look outside first." Zhou slowly walked around the lake, hoping to see if there was a tiny palm symbol. Because the lake was very small, he had circled it in half an hour during the day and did not find the small palm symbol. Now that the sea of stars had appeared, there was a possibility that he might find it. The inside of the lake was like the starry sky of the universe, but the outside was still as big, giving people a very strange feeling. Zhou circled the lake and carefully looked at every inch of it, but he still didn't find the tiny palm symbol. Just as he was feeling disappointed, his gaze suddenly swept across a stone monument at the bottom of the lake. The stone monument was lying flat at the bottom of the lake, and there were many star patterns on it like a star chart. "What's that?" Zhou pointed at the stone monument at the bottom of the lake and asked Lu Yun. "That's the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument. As long as I can comprehend the profundities of the star chart on it, I can comprehend the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. This is also the key to me being able to absorb and comprehend the divine skill, Star Stealer," Lu Yun said. Lu Yun knew that it wasn't that easy to comprehend the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument. Not only did it require extremely high perceptivity, but it also required a special physique. Ignoring the fact that Zhou didn't have a special physique that was compatible with the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art, even if he did, Zhou, who was already at the epic stage, probably wouldn't change his essence energy art and start all over again. Zhou actually didn't have much interest in the various essence energy arts. He couldn't practice all of them, even if there were too many. It wasn't difficult to simulate an essence energy art, but it was very difficult to raise it. However, since the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art was necessary for Star Stealer, Zhou planned on giving it a try and see if he could use the Lost Immortal Sutra to simulate it. After circulating the Lost Immortal Sutra, Zhou carefully sized up the stone monument. The star chart on the stone monument kept changing, making it impossible for him to figure out what it meant. Furthermore, there were no words on it, making it difficult to understand. Lu Yun is actually able to comprehend an essence energy art from such a star chart. He's really a genius. When Zhou carefully sized up the star chart, he made an unexpected discovery. On the corner of the stone monument was a tiny palm symbol. However, the stars on the stone monument shimmered brightly, and it was engraved on the corner. It was covered in moss and separated by the lake. If not for the starlight illuminating it and Zhou's good eyesight, he wouldn't have been able to see it. "Eldest senior brother, can we see that sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument during the day?" Zhou asked Lu Yun. The stone monument is naturally still there during the day, but you can't see the starlight flowing on it during the day. It's just an empty stone monument. It's useless even if you look at it. Seeing that the meteor shower had ended, Lu Yun said to Zhou Wen, "All right, let's go down now." I thought about it. The endless sea of stars is so dangerous. My luck has been very bad recently, and I've seen a jinx. I think I shouldn't go down. If you go down, help me see if you can obtain the Astral Combat Beast Essence Energy Skill Crystal, Zhou Wen said. Junior brother, you didn't say that before? Didn't you say that people can't hide a home just because they're unlucky? Why are you suddenly so superstitious? Lu Yun looked at Zhou Wen in puzzlement. Zhou Wen thought to himself, previously, I didn't have the tiny palm symbol, so of course I could only come out to take risks. Now that I've found the tiny palm symbol, I can go home and comfortably grind dungeons after downloading the game. Why should I take risks? Of course, Zhou Wen couldn't tell Lu Yun this, so he said, actually, I mainly want to take a look at this sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument. Since I can see it from here, I won't go down. If you want to go down, go down. If you don't, you can stay with me to study the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument. Lu Yun cursed inwardly. I've seen this crappy monument tens of thousands of times. Why would I still look at it? You don't have my star veins of the heavens body. So what can you see? Even if you look at it for another 10,000 years, you won't be able to comprehend the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. Back then, the reason why Lu Yun was able to comprehend the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art was because the star chart on the stone monument had triggered the star veins in his body, allowing them to sense the trajectories of the stars. Only then could he gain insights. Without the star veins of the heavens, just looking at the star chart was useless. Chapter 653. All right, take your time here. However, don't go into the lake alone. It wasn't easy for me to come here. I'll go down to hunt some astral beasts. If I'm lucky, I can hunt an astral combat beast and drop an essence energy skill crystal in exchange for that autograph. Lu Yun walked toward the lake. Eldest senior brother, be careful, Zhou Wen said. Without you by my side, I probably won't be that unlucky, Lu Yun said as he entered the water. Zhou Wen watched Lu Yun fall into the lake. The lake looked very shallow, but when Lu Yun stepped into the water, his body kept sinking as though he couldn't reach the bottom. Furthermore, when his body fell into the water, it slowly shrank. Finally, like a speck of dust, he floated towards the tiny balls and vanished in the blink of an eye. What a magical dimensional zone. When it's daytime, I'll go down to the lake to take a picture of the tiny palm symbol and download the endless sea of stars dungeon. Then, I can grind however I want. Zhou Wen sat down by the lake and carefully looked at the star chart on the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument. After looking at it for a while, the Lost Immortal Sutra took effect. The flow of essence energy slowed down before finally stopping completely. After that, the essence energy suddenly went berserk. It circulated in Zhou Wen's body in a new way. The sky-stealing, sun-shifting art was different from the essence energy arts that Zhou Wen had cultivated in the past. It was a very magical feeling. He felt like the essence energy in his body seemed to transform into countless stars that circulated endlessly in his body. Furthermore, when it circulated, it wasn't a linear flow. Instead, it was like the trajectories of real stars, forming galaxies. Before long, Zhou Wen had gained basic mastery of the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. However, it wasn't that simple to raise the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. Zhou Wen wasn't in a rush to practice it. It was useless to be anxious. This wasn't something that could be mastered overnight. He found a rock by the lake and sat down. He took out his phone and began grinding. After daytime, he would head down to the lake to take a picture of the tiny palm symbol. After Zhou Wen finished grinding the dungeon, there was still a long time before daybreak. Lu Yun hadn't returned. He stood up and stretched his body. He looked at the endless sea of stars and realized that there was something strange in it. During the day, Zhou Wen had taken a very careful look. The lake was somewhat odd. There were no creatures inside. There weren't even bugs or aquatic plants, much less fish or shrimp. The entire lake was as clean as pure water. But now, Zhou saw a jellyfish-like creature in the lake. Its body was transparent like crystal, and it emitted light like a light bulb. The jellyfish-like creature bobbed up and down in the lake. When it passed by the star-like balls, it actually swallowed them into its body. Although the jellyfish itself was not big, only a little bigger than an adult's clenched fist, if those stars were regarded as planets, then the size of the jellyfish would be somewhat terrifying. This thing can actually devour planets. Zhou felt that something was amiss because he realized that the jellyfish was very close to the area where Lu Yun was. If the ball that Lu Yun is in is swallowed by the jellyfish, will Lu Yun die too? Zhou watched the jellyfish move in the water. Although it was very slow, it was moving closer and closer to Lu Yun. Eldest senior brother won't die just like that, right? Zhou was somewhat worried, but there was nothing he could do. There are too many balls in the lake. It's like a sea of stars. I only know where Lu Yun is going, but I don't know which ball it is. Even if he goes down now, it's already too late. After some thought, Zhou summoned the golden overlord sword and slashed out a sword beam at the jellyfish in the lake. However, the moment the sword beam entered the lake, it became smaller and smaller. Finally, it was as small as a needle tip. Ignoring killing the jellyfish, it had already disappeared when it was still a distance away from the jellyfish. Furthermore, the sword beam had become so small. Even if it hit the jellyfish, it probably wouldn't be of much use. Eldest senior brother, it's not that I don't want to save you, but I really can't do it. Zhou slashed a few more times, but it was useless. All he could do was watch helplessly as the jellyfish approached the area where Lu Yun was. It's over. Soon, the jellyfish arrived at the area where Lu Yun was and swallowed the nearby balls one by one. When the balls entered its body, they were like glowing jelly beans. They circled around its body before slowly melting until they vanished. Eldest senior brother, I never expected you to die like this. You didn't even leave a single piece of clothing behind. I can't even build a cenotaph for you. Just as Zhou was sighing, he suddenly heard a splash. Lu Yun emerged from the lake, looking extremely wretched. His clothes seemed to be made of paper, turning into paste when they came into contact with the water. Junior brother, did you mess with me again? Do you want to burn the bridge after crossing it and let me die below? Lu Yun jumped ashore and questioned Zhou angrily. Eldest senior brother, what do you mean? I saw the monster in the water devour the balls and wanted to save you, but all my attacks became insignificant when they entered the lake. There was nothing I could do, Zhou said. If it wasn't for you secretly playing tricks, how could I be so unlucky to encounter a planet devourer? That thing usually doesn't come out, Lu Yun said with widened eyes. Eldest senior brother, you've really misunderstood me. I'm not familiar with this place at all. I still need you to take me out of the desert. Even if I wanted to attack you, I wouldn't choose such a time. Besides, if I wanted to mess with you, there's no need for me to secretly touch you, right? I knew it. It's inauspicious to see a jinx, Zhou said. Lu Yun thought that it was true and couldn't help but say gloomily, why have I been so unlucky recently? I clearly didn't see the planet devourer before I went down. Thankfully, I have the sky crossing technique. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to survive even if I had 10 lives. What's that planet devourer? It should be a mythical creature. Can it really devour planets? Zhou was rather curious about the jellyfish-like planet devourer. I don't know if it could devour planets in reality, but in the endless sea of stars, that fellow is an overlord. No matter what astral beast it is, it can devour them in one mouthful. Even the planets inside are no exception. However, the planets in the endless sea of stars are much smaller than real planets. I reckon that if that planet devourer were outside, it would at most be able to devour a mountain, Lu Yun said. Do you think my tyrant behemoth can kill it? Zhou said after some thought. I don't think so. Tyrant behemoth isn't good at water battles, right? Lu Yun said as he glanced at the planet devourer in the lake. I really don't know about that. Zhou planned on getting Tyrant Behemoth to give it a try after downloading the dungeon. Due to the planet devourer, Lu Yun didn't dare enter the endless sea of stars again. All he could do was stay by the lake with Zhou. So Gu. Chapter 654. Junior brother, you've been watching for so long. Have you figured out anything? Luyan sat by the side and asked in boredom. A little, Zhou said. How much is a little? Luyan continued asking. Without a physique that was compatible with the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument, it would be strange if he could figure out. Therefore, Luyan didn't believe Zhou when he said that he had figured out a little. This had nothing to do with being a genius. It didn't even have much to do with perceptivity. Without the heavenly star veins, it was impossible for him to figure it out. This was the foundation. Just like how one couldn't build a skyscraper without a foundation, Zhou had no chance of figuring out the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. A little is just a little, Zhou said with a smile. Luyan curled his lips and didn't ask further. Zhou kept staring at the endless sea of stars, wanting to see what else was in it other than the planet Devourer. Unfortunately, apart from the planet Devourer, he didn't see any other dimensional creatures. Apart from this planet Devourer, are there no other dimensional creatures in the endless sea of stars? Zhou asked. There are astral beasts on those small planets, but they only move on the planets and can't leave them. Outside the small planets, there's only one planet Devourer. It's the king here. It can swallow a small planet with a single bite, and even the dimensional creatures on it will be devoured. It's an invincible existence. Apart from your eldest senior brother, who's good at deceiving the world, I can't escape. If it were anyone else, even if the 6 heroes were to revive, they wouldn't be able to escape its devouring, Luyan said smugly. Zhou watched for a while and felt bored. He took out his phone to game and grind mythical creatures and rare dimensional creatures. If you're done watching, let's go back. Although there shouldn't be any danger if we don't enter the endless sea of stars, you know that something might happen in a place like the desert. But in a place like the Great Desert, you also know that something might happen. The two of us have been having bad luck recently. It's best we return early, Luyan said. I want to go into the water to take a look at the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument during the day. Perhaps I might discover something, Zhou said half-truthfully. Luyan curled his lips and said, Junior brother, don't blame me for being straightforward. If you can't understand it at night, what can you see when there's no starlight chart in the day? It'll just be a bare monument with some scratches. I came all the way here. I can't accept it if I don't take a look, Zhou said, unmoved. All right, we'll leave after you're done with it during the day. I'll sleep for a while. Wake me up later. Luyan collapsed to the side and fell asleep in less than 3 seconds. His sleeping posture was very strange. Zhou felt that he was like a cat that could jump up at any moment. After taking a closer look, he realized that Luyan's sleeping posture was unusual. No matter which direction he was attacked from, his posture made it easy for him to react. To be able to develop such a sleeping posture, Luyan must have experienced many things in the past. How could a normal person be so guarded when sleeping? Zhou's senses were very sharp, but he wouldn't maintain a combat posture while sleeping because he didn't have such a consciousness. Of course, with Di Ting around, it was impossible for ordinary people to get close to him without being discovered. After gaming the entire night, although he had obtained quite a number of companion eggs, none of them were what he really wanted. Medusa, Cheongqi, and Torch Dragon didn't drop companion eggs. That shouldn't be the case. Every time I kill them, I bring the baby tiger with me. After killing them so many times, logically speaking, it should drop, right? Zhou was somewhat depressed. The night quickly passed. In the morning, the starlight in the lake surged into the sky like a countercurrent and disappeared into the void. The lake returned to normal. It looked like an ordinary lake, but it was unimaginable that it would transform into a starry sky at night. Luyan didn't lie to him. The sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument in the lake was still there. Zhou woke Luyan up and asked him if there were any taboos in the lake. There's no taboos. As long as you don't enter the lake at night, this lake isn't much different from an ordinary lake, Luyan said with a shake of his head. Zhou tried entering the water. Indeed, it wasn't as magical as last night. When Zhou stepped into the lake, the water only reached his waist. Zhou had learned the 9 dragons art from the black dragon. He plunged into the water and quickly arrived at the spot where the sky-stealing, sun-shifting monument was. Just as Lu Yun had said, during the day, this was a broken stone monument covered in moss. There were only some scratches on it, and there was no starlight pattern. If it wasn't for the tiny palm symbol engraved on it, it wouldn't have been eye-catching. When he got close, the mysterious phone vibrated. Zhou Wen picked up his phone and took a picture of the stone monument. The phone immediately entered the download screen. After putting away his phone, Zhou Wen touched the stone monument again. He felt that it was ice-cold, like a piece of metal. He didn't dare do anything out of line as he turned around and swam back to the shore. "How is it, junior brother? Did you figure out anything?" Lu Yun asked Zhou Wen with a smile. "A little." Zhou Wen nodded. "You figured out a little yesterday, and you figured out a little today. That's impressive. You should have gained basic mastery, right?" Lu Yun teased Zhou Wen. "Yes, I've gained basic mastery," Zhou Wen answered. Lu Yun, who was drinking water, nearly choked. He looked at Zhou Wen in disbelief and asked, "Are you for real? Have you really gained basic mastery?" "It's just basic mastery. What's so difficult about it? Didn't you gain basic mastery long ago?" Zhou Wen said casually. How could Lu Yun believe him? He reached out and grabbed a handful of sand from the ground. With a pinch of his palm, the sand condensed into a ball that looked like a huge grain of sand. Lu Yun loosened his grip again, and the huge grain of sand dispersed, turning into a handful of yellow sand again. "If you really gain basic mastery, you should be able to do it, right?" Lu Yun said to Zhou Wen. "I'll give it a try." Zhou Wen also grabbed a handful of sand from the ground and circulated the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art. He pinched the sand, and the sand was sucked together like a magnet, turning into a ball. However, it wasn't as round as Lu Yun's. Holy **T. You really gained basic mastery of the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art? Lu Yun widened his eyes as he looked at Zhou Wen as though he had seen a ghost. How can it be fake? Zhou Wen loosened his grip, and the sand scattered. "All right, I've achieved my goal. Let's go back. I'll return your autograph to you when we leave the desert," Zhou Wen said. "Little junior brother, you really are a genius in cultivation, but how did you do it? According to what I know, cultivating the sky-stealing, sun-shifting art requires a special physique. You don't look like you have a special physique." Lu Yun was puzzled. He was a star vein of the heavens himself, so he naturally knew the characteristics of someone with a star vein of the heavens. Zhou Wen didn't have those characteristics. "Do I need a special physique? I don't know about that. I just casually practiced and gained basic mastery. I didn't find it difficult," Zhou Wen said. Lu Yun felt as though something was stuck in his throat, preventing him from saying a word. Chapter 655. The journey back to the city was rather smooth. He didn't encounter any sandstorms when he passed by, nor did he see Netherworld City. After leaving the desert, Zhou Wen returned the autograph to Lu Yun as promised. After Lu Yun confirmed that it was his signature, he looked at Zhou Wen with a complicated expression and said, "Junior brother, I'm afraid the entire world is searching for Tyrant Behemoth's owner. Aren't you afraid that I'll leak your secret? Although we haven't spent much time together, and I don't know you well, I believe you aren't the type of person to do such a thing." Although Zhou Wen said that, he thought to himself, it doesn't matter if it's exposed. This isn't my only trump card. Since I placed it on the rankings, I'm already mentally prepared to be exposed. "I like what you said. Don't worry. You're my junior brother after all. As your senior brother, I won't harm you. I'll help you keep your secret," Lu Yun said with a smile. It was unknown if he was telling the truth. "All right, let's part ways here. It's time for me to return." Zhou Wen planned on splitting up with Lu Yun and rushing back to the town. The ranking battle hadn't ended. Tyrant Behemoth was currently ranked 4th, so it should still have a chance to challenge a few more times. Lu Yun clearly didn't want to continue being with Zhou Wen. Ever since he met Zhou Wen, his luck hadn't been good. He seriously suspected that it was because of the 2 sabers on Zhou Wen. "Junior brother, I don't know when we will meet again after today. I'll give you a farewell song," Lu Yun said heroically. "All right," Zhou Wen nodded. He never expected Lu Yun to sing. "The lady is beautiful. The lady is wild. The lady is walked in. Lu Yun sat on the turtle's back and sang loudly. The turtle ran very quickly and soon it disappeared from Zhou Wen's sight. Only the melodious singing echoed in his ears. Zhou Wen was speechless. He wondered what song it was, but it turned out to be a folk tune. Needless to say, the song sung by Lu Yun was quite charming. It made one have the urge to beat him up. After Lu Yun's voice could no longer be heard, Zhou Wen summoned Six-Winged and rode it back. Although it was uncomfortable, that was all he could do. As he traveled, Zhou Wen opened the downloaded Endless Sea of Stars dungeon. In fact, the dungeon had long been completed, but with Lu Yun around, Zhou Wen didn't dare open it. After opening the Endless Sea of Stars dungeon, the blood-colored avatar appeared in the cosmos. There were planets around it, but they didn't look as huge as real planets. These planets were about the size of mountains, but on these small planets, there was no distinction of up, down, left, or right. On a nearby small planet, there was a group of exotic beasts. These exotic beasts were running on the small planet. Many of them looked like they were below the planet, making people worry that they would fall from the planet. If it was a real planet, because it was too big, the comparison wouldn't be too obvious. On such a small planet, the visual impact of seeing a group of exotic beasts standing upside down on the planet was very strong. Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar to fly towards the planet. At the same time, he summoned his six-winged companion beasts and charged at the alien beasts on the planet. The alien beasts looked like humanoid mantises. When they saw the blood-colored avatar, they rushed forward, but most of them were killed by six-winged and torch dragon's dragon breath. Killed legendary creature, Fiend Star Mantis. Killed legendary creature, Fiend Star Mantis. The messages kept refreshing, and quite a number of dimensional crystals dropped. There were even a few companion eggs among them. However, dimensional crystals and companion eggs of this level were no longer of much use to Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen went to a few nearby planets and realized that there were many types of astral beasts here, but most of them were at the mortal or legendary stage. It was rare to even see epic ones. I forgot to ask eldest senior brother Lu Yun which planet the astral combat beast is on. There are thousands of small planets here. I wonder how long it will take to search them one by one. Zhou Wen was somewhat depressed. This was somewhat different from the endless sea of stars he had imagined. He imagined that the endless sea of stars was filled with mythical creatures. There was no other way. It was impossible to find Lu Yun now. All Zhou Wen could do was slowly search the small planets. Thankfully, his companion beasts were very impressive. Killing the astral beasts on a small planet wasn't difficult. He didn't find the mythical astral combat beast, but Zhou Wen discovered a strange astral beast. It was a fox with crescent-shaped starlight shimmering on its chest. After Zhou Wen killed it, according to the notification, it was a heart lunar fox at the mortal stage. Even if a mortal stage dimensional creature dropped something, Zhou Wen typically didn't think much of it. The chances of a companion egg dropping at the mortal stage were extremely low. It was about the same as buying a lottery ticket. Furthermore, it was useless for Zhou Wen to have a mortal companion beast. This heart lunar fox didn't drop a companion egg either. All it dropped was an essence energy skill crystal. However, it was also very rare for a mortal stage creature. Zhou Wen originally didn't pay attention to the mortal stage essence energy skill, but when he saw its name, he was somewhat surprised. The name of the essence energy skill crystal dropped by the heart lunar fox wasn't heart lunar fox crystal, but azure dragon heart crystal. Heart lunar fox. I seem to have heard of this name somewhere. Zhou Wen went online to check and couldn't help but be even more surprised. Not many modern people knew the name Heart Lunar Fox, but in ancient times, it was one of the 28 lunar mansions. The 28 lunar mansions were divided into the Eastern Azure Dragon 7 mansions, the Northern Black Tortoise 7 mansions, the Southern Vermilion Bird 7 mansions, and the Western White Tiger 7 mansions. The Heart Lunar Fox was one of the Eastern Azure Dragon 7 mansions. It represented the heart. This Heart Lunar Fox is only at the mortal stage. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be related to the 28 lunar mansions. Those are extremely powerful existences in myths and legends. They should at least be at the mythical stage. Even if it's not at the mythical stage, it's impossible for it to be mortal, right? However, the essence energy skill crystal dropped by the Heart Lunar Fox is actually called the Azure Dragon Heart Crystal. It doesn't seem right to say that it's unrelated. Zhou thought for a moment and let the blood-colored avatar absorb the Azure Dragon Heart Crystal to see what essence energy skill it comprehended. Typically, mortal stage essence energy skill crystals could be absorbed easily, but when Zhou tried to absorb them, he was notified that the essence energy art didn't match. A mortal stage essence energy skill actually needs an essence energy art to match. This was the first time Zhou had encountered such a thing. He couldn't help but feel curious. After some thought, he changed his essence energy art to sky-stealing, sun-shifting before absorbing the Azure Dragon Heart Crystal. This time, he successfully absorbed it. This essence energy skill was somewhat odd. Typical essence energy skills opened up a essence energy circulation route in the body. However, after the Azure Dragon Heart was absorbed, it condensed into a point in his body. It remained motionless like a nail. Absorbed Azure Dragon Heart Crystal. Attained Essence Energy Skill Heart Lunar Fox. Chapter 656. Zhou attempted to activate the Heart Lunar Fox skill, but there was no reaction. If this skill is really related to the 28 lunar mansions, could it be that I have to gather all the skills of the 28 lunar mansions to use it? Or could it be that I can use it after gathering the 7 Azure Dragon mansions? Zhou was only guessing. Up to now, there was no way to prove the relationship between the two. With an indifferent attitude, Zhou paid special attention when grinding to see if any mortal creatures dropped essence energy skill crystals. After grinding for a long time, he didn't see any similar mortal essence energy skills. After Zhou respawned the dungeon, he went to the spot where he had discovered the Heart Lunar Fox, but he didn't see it again. With the experience of grinding the baby tiger, Zhou knew that such matters couldn't be forced. Therefore, he didn't deliberately search for it. He only paid attention when grinding low-level monsters, mainly to find astral combat beasts. After another day, Zhou unexpectedly discovered that he had obtained another Azure Dragon Room Crystal. After absorbing it, he obtained the Room Solar Rabbit's Essence Energy skill. However, just like the Heart Lunar Fox, the Room Solar Rabbit skills couldn't be used. Heart Lunar Fox and Room Solar Rabbit. It looks like there's no mistake. It's really related to the 28 lunar mansions. But why are the 28 lunar mansions such low-level dimensional creatures? Zhou couldn't figure out the reason, but he paid more attention when grinding. When he returned to the town inside Funyo Mountain, Zhou obtained some skill crystals related to the 28 lunar mansions. In the middle, he had the most moon foxes and room solar rabbits. He had obtained 3 of each, but he couldn't take them out. It was useless even if he had more. Furthermore, these skills didn't have ranks. There was no problem of the same skills rank. Zhou also obtained the skill crystals of Hornwood Flood Dragon, D-Earth Raccoon Dog, Tail Fire Tiger, and Water Leopard of Winnowing Basket. These mortal stage dimensional creatures were strange. There were very few of them, but as long as he found them, they would definitely drop skill crystals. Nothing else would drop. The skill crystals that Zhou obtained were all from the Azure Dragon 7 lunar mansions. Zhou had already learned 6 skills, and he was only short of the Azure Dragon's neck golden dragon. After arriving at the town, Zhou looked at the rankings again and realized that no one had challenged Tyrant Behemoth. It was still ranked 4th. In front of Tyrant Behemoth were still Primordial Sword Immortal, Death of the Underworld, and Fairy Undying Goo. Why isn't anyone challenging Primordial Sword Immortal? There should be less than a month left of the 3-month deadline, right? Zhou didn't wish to be a scout. He planned on returning to school that day. It wouldn't be too late for him to return after someone challenged Primordial Sword Immortal. When he reached the entrance of the town, he suddenly heard a sound coming from outside. He used Truth Listener to investigate and realized that a few people were heading towards the town. What are they doing here? Zhou realized that Xiao Siyuan and Liz were among the people who had come. Although they weren't wearing the Bureau's uniform, Zhou had a deep impression of them. He recognized them at a glance. The others looked like they were from the Bureau. Zhou didn't know why he had such a judgment, but his intuition told him that the people from the Bureau had a special bearing. It was very difficult to see such a bearing on ordinary people. Just like how soldiers could easily tell, it was the same for the people from the Bureau. However, their temperament was somewhat different from ordinary soldiers. This was originally a good opportunity to take revenge, but Zhou wanted to figure out why they had come here. Therefore, he retreated into the forest and used Truth Listener to monitor their every move from afar. Clear the area. After entering the valley, Qiao Siyuan gave the order. Immediately, someone took out all sorts of equipment and summoned companion beasts. It began to get busy. Zhou recognized a few companion beasts. They were likely probing-type companion beasts. From the looks of it, they wanted to ensure that there were no outsiders here. With a thought, Zhou sneaked into the lake and hid in the water. Then, he used his Dao body to converge his aura and fuse with the surrounding natural environment. Qiao Siyuan and company busied themselves for 2 to 3 hours, taking control of the entire valley. Only then did they confirm that there was no one else here. Therefore, they transported a lot of things from outside the town. Zhou saw companion beasts carrying buckets of items into the town. He had no idea what was inside. Minister, the inventory is done, Liz reported to Qiao Siyuan. Set up a sentry post and split it into 3 shifts to monitor the situation outside. Everyone else, get some rest immediately, Qiao Siyuan ordered. Yes. Liz accepted the order and began to group the people. When Liz returned to Qiao Siyuan's side, he had already sat down in a small building. Minister, is the blood oxypetalum really as magical as the legends say? Liz poured Qiao Siyuan a cup of tea and asked curiously. You should have heard of the term ephemeral bloom, right? Qiao Siyuan took a sip of tea and said indifferently. I've heard of it, but I heard that it's just an exaggerated metaphor used by the people of the East District. In fact, the blood oxypetalum blooms for a few hours a day. It's not as exaggerated as a ephemeral bloom, Liz said. Qiao Siyuan nodded. Ordinary blood oxypetalum isn't as exaggerated as ephemeral, but it's different if it's a blood oxypetalum. After a pause, Qiao Siyuan continued, to make the blood oxypetalum bloom, you have to pour a large amount of blood. Ordinary blood won't do. It has to be the blood essence of dimensional creatures. The more blood essence the blood oxypetalum absorbs, the more beautiful the flower it blooms. Furthermore, it can produce a blood oxypetalum seed. When Zhou heard that, he recalled the red gem he had obtained. Previously, so many white deer had been sacrificed by the mountain god before a blood flower bloomed in the lake, producing a red gem. No matter how it sounded like the blood oxypetalum seed that Qiao Siyuan had mentioned. If the flower in the lake is really a blood oxypetalum, then are Qiao Siyuan and company here for a blood sacrifice to obtain a blood oxypetalum seed? What's the use of this thing? Just as Zhou was thinking, Liz gave him the answer. Minister, can the blood oxypetalum seed really change a person's bloodline talent? Liz asked. That's not something I know. I've never used the blood oxypetalum seed, so I can't make a judgment. However, since the Director General wants to do this, he must have his reasons, Qiao Siyuan said indifferently. Minister, you're right. The Director General has put in so much effort to specially prepare this blood. If it really succeeds, the seed produced by the blood oxypetalum will definitely be extraordinary, Liz said enviously. Chapter 657. Zhou originally imagined that Qiao Siyuan and company would soon take action, but to his surprise, they had only set up an airtight defense. Even a fly could fly in without any intention of taking action. They should be waiting for someone. Will Shin Yuqi come personally? Zhou felt that it would be perfect if Shin Yuqi really came personally. Zhou didn't dare barge into the headquarters of the Bureau, but if Shin Yuqi dared to come, Zhou could use all his strength to see if he could make him stay. As there were many monitoring companion beasts and instruments placed around the lake, Zhou went hid in the water, not daring to move. Any abnormalities might lead to him being discovered. After enduring for more than 2 days, he finally realized that someone had come to the town. To Zhou Wen's disappointment, the person wasn't Shen Yuqi, but a man he didn't know. Qiao Xiyuan and Liz addressed the person as Censor Kai and were very respectful towards him. Zhou Wen immediately guessed that the person was Kai Jin of the Four Censors. Kai Jin held an alloy box in his hand. There was an alloy chain on the box that was connected to Kai Jin's hand. The last time the primordial crystal mine was stolen, the Bureau had suffered huge losses. Shen Yuqi had only punished Kai Jin lightly, which made him very grateful. This time, Kai Jin had made sufficient preparations to secretly come to Funya Mountain. He couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. Minister Qiao, how's the defensive work here? Kai Jin asked. It's been fully monitored. We didn't discover any outsiders, Qiao Xiyuan answered. Very good. Let's begin tomorrow, Kai Jin said. Liz asked in puzzlement. Censor, why aren't we taking action tonight? I've traveled such a long distance. I need to rest for the night to maintain myself in peak condition. It's better if we take action tomorrow, Kai Jin explained. However, after Kai Jin left Qiao Xiyuan's temporary office, he didn't rest. Instead, he summoned a companion beast that resembled honey. There were many of them that flew in every direction. Clearly, Kai Jin wasn't at ease with their defensive setup. He had to do it again. These people from the Bureau are really more cautious than the last. Zhou Wen saw that Kai Jin had even walked through the valley. He paid special attention to the forest and lake. He even summoned a water, snake-like companion beast to search underwater. Thankfully, Zhou Wen was prepared. He had dug a hole in the lake ahead of time and hid inside like a loach. It wasn't easy for him to escape Kai Jin's search. Liz was very displeased with Kai Jin's actions. Is Censor Kai doubting our ability? However, Qiao Xiyuan said indifferently, this matter is of great importance. It's better to be cautious. After Kai Jin rearranged his defenses, he returned to the temporary encampment to rest. It was not until nightfall the next day that he got up and rushed to the lake with Qiao Xiyuan and the others. The inspectors and various companion beasts had already surrounded the lake. Zhou Wen suddenly thought of something. When they sacrificed the blood oxypetalum later, wouldn't they have to get a lot of blood into the lake? Thinking of the lake full of blood, Zhou Wen felt a little uncomfortable. However, there were inspectors and companion beasts everywhere around the lake. It was too late for him to leave. Minister Qiao, let's begin. After arriving by the lake, Kai Jin summoned his companion beasts again to search the area before saying to Qiao Xiyuan, Liz. Qiao Xiyuan gestured to Liz. Liz immediately got the inspectors to take action. One by one, the inspectors opened the buckets and poured the blood into the lake from different directions. The buckets of blood quickly dyed the lake red. Each bucket weighed 50 kilograms. They had brought more than 300 buckets of blood. If so much blood was poured, the surroundings would be filled with the pungent smell of blood. Zhou Wen hid in the water and felt even more uncomfortable, but he could only endure it. Thankfully, it didn't take long for Zhou Wen to see the blood surge towards the center of the lake as though it was attracted by something. Splash! The blood oxypetalum broke out of the water and floated above the water surface. It greedily absorbed the blood in the water, and its snow-white petals quickly turned the color of blood. There was so much blood in the lake, but in less than an hour, it was completely sucked dry, restoring the lake's clarity. However, the petals of the blood oxypetalum didn't bloom. However, a red glow flickered in the flower bud. Only then did Kai Jin open the box in his hand. In a huge box, there was only a palm-sized bottle. Kai Jin picked up the bottle and carefully opened it. A pair of eagle wings spread out behind him as he flew above the blood oxypetalum. He poured the blood in the bottle at the blood oxypetalum. There was only one drop of blood in the palm-sized alloy bottle. The drop of crystalline blood landed on the blood oxypetalum and quickly seeped in. Immediately, the sanguine color on the blood oxypetalum's body completely faded. The petals turned snow-white again and bloomed. The blood oxypetalum had already become as pure as a snow lotus. It wasn't stained with any blood, but in its petals, a sanguine glow surged into the sky with a thick bloodlust aura. Why is this different from the mountain god blood sacrifice situation? Zhou was somewhat surprised when he saw all of this. It worked. Kai Jin, Xiao Siyuan, and Liz were overjoyed. Kai Jin flapped his wings and flew towards the blood oxypetalum, hoping to snatch the seed produced by the blood oxypetalum. Flower vines with sharp thorns tore out of the water and swept towards Kai Jin in midair. Kai Jin was truly capable, as expected of one of the four sensors. His body circled like an eagle as a sword of light flashed in his hand, slicing off the flower vines one by one. What sword is that? Zhou sized up the sword in Kai Jin's hand curiously. The sword didn't have a corporeal body. It was completely condensed from light. It was a little like the legendary beam saber, but a beam saber should have a device to emit light. This sword was completely condensed from light without any devices. With the flower vines sliced off, Kai Jin successfully approached the petals. The blood oxypetalum no longer had the strength to resist and was about to be obtained by Kai Jin. Just as Kai Jin was about to take out the blood oxypetalum's seed, the lake beside him suddenly exploded. A blurry figure tore out of the water and reached into the blood oxypetalum first, snatching the red gem-like blood oxypetalum seed. The expressions of Kai Jin, Xiao Siyuan, and company changed drastically. Kai Jin roared angrily as the sword of light in his hand stabbed at Zhou like a meteor. Zhou wore the jade crystal spirit armor and held the golden battle god halberd in his hand as he charged at the sword of light. Kacha! The sword of light was shattered by the golden battle god halberd. The golden battle god halberd's golden divine light tore through the void and stabbed at Kai Jin's chest. Sogu. Chapter 658. Mythical Weapon. Kai Jin was alarmed as he summoned a companion beast to block in front of him. At the same time, he quickly retreated. Unfortunately, he was still too slow. The golden battle god halberd pierced through the companion beast's body and constantly slammed into Kai Jin's chest, piercing through it and lifting him into the air. Who are you? Why are you making an enemy of our bureau? Kai Jin stared intently at Zhou as he asked while coughing blood. Zhou didn't answer. With a flick of the golden battle god halberd, Kai Jin's body was immediately torn apart like a rag. He died and fell into the lake. Liz was alarmed as she was dumbfounded. One of the four censors, Kai Jin, had been killed in one strike. He didn't even have the ability to resist. It made her feel boundless horror. Minister! Liz turned her head and realized that Xiao Siyuan, who had been standing beside her, had disappeared. She had no idea when he had fled. Liz was immediately alarmed as she turned to run. The other inspectors also came to their senses. When they saw that Xiao Siyuan had already disappeared, they also scrambled to escape. Zhou didn't chase after the inspectors. He didn't like killing, but this wasn't the reason why he didn't chase after them. The bureau was a department. Even if he killed those inspectors, they could still recruit new ones. Killing them was meaningless. Zhou figure moved and instantly appeared in front of Liz, blocking her path. The golden battle god halberd was pointed at her chest as the golden divine light flickered, illuminating Liz's pale face. I'm Liz from the Cape family. Let me go and you can obtain anything you want, Liz said in horror as she stood there, not daring to move. Zhou looked at Liz and said indifferently, Your red convertible sports car is of good quality. It can still be driven after such a collision. When Liz heard that, her pupils constricted as she looked at Zhou in disbelief. She opened her mouth and shouted, You are, before she could finish her sentence. The golden battle god halberd had already penetrated her chest, causing blood to gush out of her mouth. She was unable to finish her sentence. Liz stared intently at Zhou, as though she couldn't believe that she was about to die. Go in peace. I'll soon get the Cape family to accompany you. Zhou raised the golden battle god halberd in his hand, and Liz's body was torn apart. Zhou used Truth Listener to search his surroundings, But he didn't find Xiao Siyuan. He didn't know what method he had used to escape. Knowing that he could not stay here any longer, Zhouwen did not chase after the other ordinary inspectors and quickly left the crouching Bull Mountain Range. After taking a detour out of the crouching Bull Mountain Range, Zhouwen secretly returned to the academy. After returning to his dorm, he realized that the chick and Antelope were staring at him covetously. He hurriedly took out the things he had prepared and handed them over. "I brought you something good. See if you like it. It's a pure specialty of the desert." After placating the two fellows, Zhouwen returned to his room and took out the two ruby-like blood oxypetalum seeds to compare them. The two seeds looked similar, but their sizes were different. The seed that he had just obtained was bigger, and its color was deeper. The previous one was lighter in color and looked more crystalline and translucent. When Banana Fairy saw the two seeds, her eyes lit up. She flew to Zhouwen's side and looked pitifully at him. "You want this?" Zhouwen held a seed in his hand in front of Banana Fairy. Banana Fairy shook her head and pointed at the blood oxypetalum seed in Zhouwen's other hand. "Aren't these two seeds the same?" Zhouwen was somewhat surprised. The one Banana Fairy wanted was produced by the mountain god blood sacrifice. He handed the blood oxypetalum seed to Banana Fairy, and she immediately hugged it in joy. After she ran over and hugged the blood oxypetalum seed, it transformed into red light that surged towards Banana Fairy's body. Soon, it enveloped her completely, forming a red cocoon. Has she evolved? Zhouwen was delighted. After Banana Fairy evolved again, she was about to advance to the mythical stage. Zhouwen still had feelings for Banana Fairy, who had followed Zhouwen for a long time. No matter how much her combat strength increased, it was a good thing for Zhouwen to advance to the mythical stage. It's the same blood oxypetalum seed. Why does Banana Fairy only want the one produced by the mountain god blood sacrifice and not this one? Zhouwen looked at the blood oxypetalum seed in his hand and couldn't guess the reason. He summoned the other companion beasts that hadn't evolved to see if they were interested in the blood oxypetalum seed. However, Demonic Neonate and Dr. Darkness weren't interested in it. Dr. Darkness didn't have the attribute to evolve, but Zhouwen felt that Dr. Darkness was very useful. He had always wanted him to evolve, but he couldn't find a way. On the other hand, Explosive Fiend Man was very interested in the blood oxypetalum seed and was eager to give it a try. "Then, I'll let you have it." Zhouwen threw the remaining blood oxypetalum seed to Explosive Fiend Man. Without any hesitation, Explosive Fiend Man swallowed the blood oxypetalum seed. Not long after, his body underwent a strange change. It looked like he was about to evolve. Explosive Fiend Man's level was too low. Typically speaking, he should be able to complete his evolution very quickly. But to his surprise, Explosive Fiend Man had transformed into a companion egg. It looked like it would take him a while to complete his evolution. Is there a problem with Explosive Fiend Man? Or is there a problem with the blood oxypetalum seed produced by the Bureau? Zhouwen was momentarily at a loss. All he could do was store Explosive Fiend Man and Banana Fairy into the chaos space. The blood oxypetalum seed has been snatched, Kai Jin died in battle, and Liz's fate is unknown. Xiao Siyuan, you still have the face to come back? Shin Yuqi looked at Xiao Siyuan with a gloomy expression, his face livid with anger. The Bureau's current situation wasn't good. He had spent a lot of effort to obtain the dimensional creature blood essence, especially the drop of blood of God. It was impossible for him to obtain a second drop. Not only was it gone, he had even lost Kai Jin and Liz's lives. It didn't matter if Kai Jin died, but Liz was a member of the Cape family. How to explain this matter to the Cape family was also a problem. Director General, my death isn't to be regretted. However, if I can't bring back the enemy's information, my death will be of no value. As Xiao Siyuan spoke, he switched on a video. It was the scene of Zhou when snatching the blood oxypetalum and killing Kai Jin. A mythical companion egg weapon? It looks like something from the West District, Shin Yuqi said as he looked at the golden battle god halberd in Zhou Wen's hand. I've already investigated. This is the mythical creature, golden battle god halberd, from the peninsula of God's metalwork temple. Previously, someone from the family clan of gods killed it, Xiao Siyuan said. Chapter 659. Are you trying to say that this person comes from the family clan of gods? Shin Yuqi frowned. That's not what I meant. However, from the current intelligence, the family clan of gods is most likely to have the golden battle god halberd, Xiao Siyuan said. Shin Yuqi looked at Xiao Siyuan for a while before saying meaningfully, "Your information came in time." Xiao Siyuan's expression didn't change at all. He only said, "This is what I should do. Director General, you gave me such an important mission, but I messed it up. My death isn't to be regretted. Director General, please punish me." Shin Yuqi looked at Xiao Siyuan and said with a smile, "Then go to the Cape family and explain this matter clearly. Yes, this matter was all my fault. I will definitely explain it to Counselor Cape. It has nothing to do with our bureau." After bowing, Xiao Siyuan left Shin Yuqi's office. After Xiao Siyuan left, a person walked out of the inner room. This was a woman dressed in a suit and looked very capable. However, she was wearing a hat, and the brim of the hat was pulled down very low. Coupled with a large pair of sunglasses, half of her face was covered, and it was almost impossible to see what she looked like. However, her round, white chin and red lips were enough to leave a deep impression. "Button, what do you think of this person?" Shin Yuqi asked the woman. The woman known as Button said indifferently, "Director General refers to the person in the video or Minister Chiao. Tell me about it." Shin Yuqi rhythmically tapped his fingers on the table as though he was thinking about something. The person in the video has an unknown armor type. His weapon is just as Minister Chiao said. It's the golden battle god halberd. The metalwork temple is the private land of the family clan of gods. Their family does have a golden battle god halberd, but that doesn't mean anything. As for Minister Chiao, he's very smart. He gave himself a chance to live and also gave the Cape family an excuse. "I believe the Cape family won't make things difficult for him this time," Button said. Shin Yuqi nodded. Among the many branch ministers, Xiao Siyuan is the most capable. Furthermore, he keeps a low profile. He's not greedy for credit or fame. At the same time, he has very few hobbies. "Director General, do you think there's a problem with him?" Button asked. "This operation is highly confidential. Very few people know about it. As for the exact details, only Kai Jin, Xiao Siyuan, and Liz know. Kai Jin is an extremely careful person. Even under such circumstances, he was ambushed and the blood oxypetalum seed was snatched away. There's a high chance that there's a traitor," Shin Yuqi said after some thought. "Do you want me to check?" Button asked. "You don't have to worry about that. Help me make a trip to the family of gods and send them a copy of the video," Shin Yuqi said. Zhou had been grinding dungeons in his dorm, but it was very strange. He had obtained many of the other 6 skills, such as Rune Solar Rabbit, but he hadn't obtained a single Kong Golden Dragon. If one of the Azure Dragon's 7 constellations was missing, the other 6 would be useless. In the vast, endless sea of stars, he failed to find any astral combat beasts. This dungeon was just too huge. Zhou estimated that it would take him a month or 2 to finish grinding. However, if he did that, he wouldn't need to do anything. He would run out of time just by grinding the endless sea of stars. However, most of the dimensional creatures in the endless sea of stars were useless. This left Zhou very vexed. Wait a minute. There are actually 28 lunar mansions in the endless sea of stars. Then, could the distribution of the planets here be related to the 28 lunar mansions? Zhou decided to do some research. The 28 lunar mansions was the ancient method of dividing the cosmos. It divided the cosmos near the ecliptic and the celestial equator into 28 regions. If the endless sea of stars was really arranged in such a way, he could determine where the 28 lunar mansions were. However, Zhou's understanding of such knowledge was very limited. All he knew was a name. He had no idea where they were distributed. He went online to search for some information, but there were many contradictions in the information online. Furthermore, it was unclear. After reading for a long time, Zhou roughly figured out the distribution and location of the 28 lunar mansions. After comparing it with the Endless Sea of Stars dungeon, he realized that a portion of the star map in the Endless Sea of Stars was indeed very similar to the 28 lunar mansions. And the place where he had obtained the Room, Solar Rabbit, and Heart Lunar Fox skills was the Azure Dragon's 7 constellations. This region was extremely huge. Zhou hadn't walked out of the Azure Dragon's 7 constellations despite grinding for so long. As expected, it's no wonder I only obtained the Azure Dragon's 7 constellations. Zhou did a rough analysis and rushed to the star domain where Golden Dragon Kong was. He planned on grinding Golden Dragon Kong to see what use these skills had. However, it wasn't that easy for Golden Dragon Kong to appear. He scanned the entire Golden Dragon region, but he didn't even see Golden Dragon Kong. Don't tell me it's as difficult to grind as Poison Dragon Palm number 3. He felt that something was amiss. Now, he was short of 1 out of 6. If it was really that difficult to grind, he didn't know when he would be able to do so. How can I find Lu Yun? I have to ask which planet that astral combat beast is on. Zhou was extremely vexed. His understanding of Lu Yun was very limited. He didn't have his phone number or address, so he didn't know where to start. After grinding for a few days, Zhou already had plans to give up. Golden Dragon Kong was indeed not easy to grind. Crack! The evolving explosive fiend man finally broke out of its shell. After the evolution, the explosive fiend man still looked like a magnetic explosion infantry. It wore heavy armor, and even the tubing was black. There was also a crystal bottle installed on its back, and one could see the red inside. It looked very strange. Zhou looked at Explosive Fiend Man stats. Explosive Fiend Man, Legendary, Evolvable, Life Providence, Lawless Strength, 21 Speed, 21 Constitution, 21 Essence Energy, 21 Talent Skill, Death List, Time Blast Companion Form, Self-Destruct Device. There weren't many changes to his stats. As expected, Zhou focused on studying Explosive Fiend Man's Life Providence. Lawless, not restricted by the rules within a certain time limit. Zhou couldn't help but be surprised. This Life Providence wasn't restricted by the rules. Such an annotation could be said to be rather powerful, but he didn't know what the actual effects were. Before Zhou could test the effects of Explosive Fiend Man's Life Providence, Explosive Fiend Man began to evolve again, turning into an egg. From the looks of it, the energy of the Blood Oxypetalum seed is a little too powerful. It actually allowed Explosive Fiend Man to continuously evolve. I wonder where the Bureau got the blood from. Seeing that the Blood Oxypetalum seed was so effective, Zhou wanted to get one for himself. As he was thinking, his phone suddenly rang. It was Li Xian. Old Zhou, quickly go online and watch the battle. A companion beast is challenging Primordial Sword Immortal. It's the Xia family's companion beast, Li Xian said excitedly. So Gu. Chapter 660. Has the Xia family finally taken action? Zhou hurriedly switched on his phone and found a video website. Indeed, he found a live broadcast. The scene was a cube screen. In the cube's arena stood a black-robed, white-haired man. However, the man's lower body was that of Snake. His black clothes fluttered without any wind, and even his long white hair slowly fluttered in the air. Count of the Wind. Zhou was immediately shocked when he saw the humanoid companion beast's name. Count of the Wind and Master of the Rain were famous existences who had participated in the Zhuolu battle. He never expected the Xia family to have a terrifying companion beast like Count of the Wind. That's not right. I didn't find Count of the Wind and Master of the Rain in Zhuolu. Where did the Xia family's Count of the Wind come from? Zhou frowned in thought. Logically speaking, Count of the Wind should be in Zhuolu, but he wasn't. Yet the Xia family actually had a Count of the Wind. This made Zhou feel that something was amiss. Old Zhou, I'm here. Open the door, Li Xian shouted from outside. Why are you here at this time? Zhou opened the door and saw Li Xian watching a live stream on his phone. It's too boring to watch such a battle alone. Do you see Count of the Wind? Although I don't know his combat strength, his appearance is too cool. As expected of a famous existence in the mythical war. As Li Xian spoke, he looked inside and saw that the antelope was sleeping on the sofa. Only then did he carefully walk in and pull a stool to sit down. The Xia family's attack definitely won't be as simple as a test. As Zhou spoke, he suddenly saw a flash in the arena. Primordial Sword Immortal tore through the air and accepted the challenge. Primordial Sword Immortal was straightforward. After it appeared, the ruby on the sword hilt emitted sword beams that transformed into a rain of swords that charged at Count of the Wind. Count of the Wind floated in the air as though an invisible wind was supporting his body. He held a peacock feather fan in his hand and fanned the torrent of swords. The invisible wind immediately blew back the sword rain, and it collided with the sword light behind it. Suddenly, there was a series of explosions, and the sky was filled with the light and shadow of the exploding sword light. A sword hum resounded through the void as Primordial Sword Immortal automatically unsheathed itself. It tore through the storm and slashed at Count of the Wind at a terrifying speed. Count of the Wind's figure drifted as though he was being carried by the wind. He easily dodged Primordial Sword Immortal's slash. However, Primordial Sword Immortal didn't stop there. He slashed at Count of the Wind again and again. Sword beams crisscrossed as though they were tearing apart the world. The Golden Overlord Sword and Primordial Sword Immortal should be considered similar companion beasts, but in comparison, the Golden Overlord Sword appeared much inferior. Primordial Sword Immortal wasn't just slashing. Every move it made was a profound sword art. It was a true sword technique and not a primordial energy skill. Zhou could even sense the astonishing sword intent. Just the sword intent alone made him feel inferior. Even his transcendent flying immortal was not as high as that sword's realm. Even when knotted, and even heaven of heaven sword, a heaven, dragon, xia, of Zhou when nodded with a solemn expression. Although Li Xian acted the same as usual, looking carefree, Zhou could sense that this fellow cared a lot about Count of the Wind. Zhou also understood why Li Xian cared so much. Li Maobai had once said that the reason their talented elder brother died young had something to do with the Xia family. Li Xian treated the Xia family as an imaginary enemy, which was why he cared so much. Count of the Wind rode the wind as he floated amidst the shocking sword art. The terrifying Primordial Sword Immortal couldn't injure him at all. From beginning to end, Count of the Wind only dodged and didn't counterattack. It was as though he was observing Primordial Sword Immortal's strength. What a powerful movement technique. Zhou eyes lit up when he saw Count of the Wind's movement technique. Although it was the same movement technique, Count of the Wind's movement technique and his transcendent flying immortal took two different paths. Count of the Wind's movement technique was extremely elegant. No matter how fast Primordial Sword Immortal's sword art was, it couldn't damage his clothes. Count of the Wind was like a god of the wind. The sword wind produced by Primordial Sword Immortal could cause his body to drift with the sword wind. Therefore, no matter how fast Primordial Sword Immortal was, it couldn't touch him. Count of the Wind was basically riding the wind. I wonder if Banana Fairy will be as strong as Count of the Wind when she evolves to the mythical stage. Zhou was somewhat looking forward to Banana Fairy, who was of the same element. Unable to hit Count of the Wind, Primordial Sword Immortal suddenly stopped attacking and flew back to the side of the scabbard. Ever since the stone sword was unsheathed, the scabbard had been floating there without any movement. At that moment, the scabbard spewed out immortal beams. Soon, the immortal beams condensed into a humanoid immortal shadow. The immortal shadow held the scabbard in one hand and the stone sword in the other as it looked at Count of the Wind. So this is the true appearance of Primordial Sword Immortal. The previous battles didn't even force his true body out. Zhou stared at Primordial Sword Immortal. Although he could only see an immortal shadow, an existence that resembled a sword spirit, the powerful sword intent on his body was enough to shock everyone. Just by standing in midair with his sword in hand, he had an aura of supremacy. It was as though the entire world would be sliced apart by him the moment he struck. What a domineering sword intent. Zhou stared at Primordial Sword Immortal. Such domineering sword intent was rather similar to the domineering side of transcendent flying immortal. However, it was more shocking and natural than transcendent flying immortal. Its realm was higher. On the other side, Count of the Wind remained calm. Under the impact of the domineering sword intent, he seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. It was as though he didn't think much of the terrifying primordial sword immortal. However, Zhou could sense that Count of the Wind wasn't really looking down on primordial sword immortal. It was just that his realm was such that he didn't think much of anything in the world. Even if all the deities in the world were his enemies, he could still remain calm even when death was at hand. Zhou looked at primordial sword immortal and then at Count of the Wind. He seemed to come to a realization as his two eyes were almost insufficient. Suddenly, primordial sword immortal finally moved. The sword moved like a beam of light, as though it had sliced through half the sky. It was so fast that everyone could only see the sword beam and not his movements. Count of the Wind finally moved as well. He transformed into a breeze that couldn't be seen with the naked eye and headed straight for primordial sword immortal's sword beam. Boom! The breeze and the sword beam collided as a terrifying shockwave rose. The fan and sword constantly clashed, but ordinary people could only see the explosion of light. They couldn't see the two companion beasts, much less their moves. Even with Zhou Wen's eyesight, he couldn't keep up. All he could do was switch to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra and use the 8 perfections Wisdom and the Hell King Life Soul to enhance his vision. Only then could he barely see clearly. So Gu. Chapter 661. Li Xian couldn't see the trajectory of the battle either. All he could do was summon his life soul. His body was immediately covered by the carapace, and his eyes were covered by a blindfold that resembled an insect's eyes. With the augmentation of the life soul, the battle scene Li Xian saw slowed down significantly. They're too powerful. I'm not afraid of strength or ruthless skills. I'm just afraid of such highly intelligent companion beasts. A companion beast actually has such high intelligence. Even a mythical companion beast of the same level can't defeat them. This is way too bugged, Li Xian said. That's right. Intelligence is indeed a hidden attribute of companion beasts. A companion beast with high intelligence does have an advantage in battle. Zhou nodded in agreement. He also liked to use companion beasts with high intelligence. For example, Banana Fairy, Demonic Neonate, and Dr. Darkness were all highly intelligent companion beasts. Even if Zhou didn't give them orders, they knew when to do what. Sometimes, their decisions would even exceed Zhou's expectations. As for brainless representatives like Tyrant Behemoth, Six-Winged, and Golden Battle God Halberd, they relied on their instincts to fight. They were much weaker in terms of intelligence. It wasn't that this wasn't good. If they were strong enough, this combat instinct could push their strength to the limits and unleash 120% of their combat strength. However, if they encountered an evenly matched opponent, such brainless companion beasts would be at a disadvantage. Zhou's mind wasn't on these companion beasts. He was more interested in primordial sword immortals, sword techniques, and Count of the Wind's movement techniques. His entire body and mind were immersed in them, as he sensed the two completely different concepts. One was supreme, while the other was calm. The two were polar opposites. And these two extremes were similar to when Zhou comprehended the mythical, transcendent, flying immortal. Count of the Wind and primordial sword immortal were evenly matched. Neither of them had the upper hand, but up to now, they hadn't used the power of the Wheel of Destiny. The ordinary citizens were scratching their heads in anxiety. This was because they could only see the multicolored light scattering everywhere. They couldn't see the exact situation of the battle. Only a few epic experts with visual abilities could see the scene clearly. Thankfully, the filming equipment was already very advanced. There would be a slow-motion replay later on, accompanied by commentary. Only then would ordinary people be able to see it clearly. Just as Zhou was engrossed in watching, Count of the Wind suddenly left the battlefield. Then, without any warning, he admitted defeat and left the battlefield. Why did you admit defeat? The victor hasn't been decided yet. Li Xian said in a daze. As Zhou had been sensing their sword techniques and movement techniques, he had a deeper understanding of them than Li Xian. He shook his head and said, Count of the Wind and Primordial Sword Immortal are very close in every aspect. If they continue fighting, they can only compete with the power of the Wheel of Destiny. The Xia family clearly doesn't want to go all out. This is just a probe, so they can only give up. What a pity. Such a mythical battle is much more interesting than watching those brute strength-type companion beasts fight, Li Xian said. Zhou also felt that he hadn't had enough. He stood up and said, Let's go to the training grounds. I just watched their battle and gained some insights. Let's give it a try and see if it's correct. When Li Xian heard that, he agreed immediately. The two of them came to the training grounds and found an independent training room. I'll imitate Primordial Sword Immortal's sword technique. See if it's correct. Zhou picked up a practice sword and recalled Primordial Sword Immortal's sword intent as he slashed at Li Xian. Interesting, but it's not domineering enough. You still held back with this strike. It should be more decisive. Li Xian didn't use a weapon as he used his carapace to block the practice sword. Is that enough? Zhou slashed out again. At the same time, he tried his best to fuse his emotions into Primordial Sword Immortal's sword intent. Not enough. Not enough. It's still not enough. Li Xian constantly fought with Zhou. As Zhou sword techniques became faster and faster, he no longer had the time to say that it was not enough. Every time Zhou attacked, Li Xian would only say the word no. Zhou gradually became one with his will, and his will became one with the sword. The feeling of using the sword became stronger and stronger. He gradually realized that the domineering nature of Primordial Sword Immortal wasn't because his sword techniques were fast and ruthless enough, but because he attacked where his opponent needed to be, preventing them from counterattacking. Therefore, there was no need to defend. Clang! Zhou's practice sword slashed at Li Xian. Although he was only using a practice sword, it left a mark on Li Xian's carapace. It was because the sword chi was too powerful. Interesting. Again, Li Xian was very excited. Zhou was also in a state of excitement. Without any hesitation, he brandished his sword and slashed at Li Xian. The more he fought, the more he found this sword technique exhilarating. Defense? What the hell is that? When I slash out with my sword, those who submit to me will live, and those who oppose me will die. There's no need for defense. With a sword in hand, I'm number one in the world. Zhou became more and more frenzied as he fought. He wasn't an arrogant person, but under the influence of the sword intent, his attacks became more and more violent. Crack! Crack! Li Xian was unable to completely block Zhou sword techniques. Sword marks appeared on the carapace on his body, but the carapace immediately recovered after it cracked. The self-healing speed was unbelievably fast. Clang! Zhou slashed at Li Xian again. The practice sword made of special rubber couldn't withstand the domineering sword chi and shattered to the ground. Let me do it! Li Xian leaped up and pulled out a practice sword from the weapon rack. He slashed at Zhou, identical to the sword technique Zhou had used. Zhou was alarmed. He knew that Li Xian's life soul could sense the enemy's techniques while injured and gain experience, but he never expected it to be able to learn techniques used by humans. Li Xian's strike wasn't much weaker than the one he had used previously. However, this made Zhou even more excited. Don't worry about me. Use all your strength. As Zhou didn't have a carapace protecting him, although Li Xian's sword technique was correct, it didn't have that domineering aura. That was why Zhou said so. All right, Li Xian didn't hold back. He used all the experience he had gained from being injured in battle. Domineering sword chi immediately filled his sword. Zhou recalled Count of the Wind's movement technique and concept. He began to simulate his movement technique and relied on it to deal with Li Xian. Movement techniques were Zhou's forte to begin with. He was more adept at using them than with sword techniques, and he entered the state faster than with sword techniques. Gully and Sadie had just seen the battle between Count of the Wind and Primordial Sword Immortal. Sadie's Eye of Odin could see more things. She wanted to study the battle between Count of the Wind and primordial sword immortal with Gully, so she had come to the training grounds. They also wanted to find a separate training room, but they realized that it was already occupied. Just as they were feeling depressed, they suddenly heard the whistling sound of sword aura coming from the training room beside them. Sogu. Chapter 662. This sword aura sound. Sadie was alarmed when she heard the sword aura sound. She turned around and walked to the door of the training room. She tried pushing the door, but she realized that it was locked. However, through the crack in the door, he could see what was going on inside. Sadie leaned in front of the door and looked inside. She was immediately alarmed. "Sister, what are you doing?" "That's not good," Gully said as he looked at Sadie strangely. "Come take a look." Sadie pulled Gully to the crack in the door and looked inside. She saw that two people were sparring. "Why does this sword technique look so familiar?" Gully mumbled when he saw Li Xian's sword technique. "What kind of brain do you have?" "That sword technique is Primordial Sword Immortal's sword technique. Also, the movement technique Zhou, when used, is Count of the Wind's movement technique. Have you forgotten it after just seeing it?" Sadie said. "Ah, it's true. That's the Primordial Sword Immortal's sword art. But how does that person know the Primordial Sword Immortal's sword art? Could he be the owner of Primordial Sword Immortal?" Gully exclaimed. "My dear brother, you are really hopelessly stupid. Zhou Wen is using Count of the Wind's movement technique. Could it be that he's Count of the Wind's master?" Sadie said helplessly. "That's right. Isn't Feng Bo from the Xia family? How did it become Zhou Wen's?" Gully was puzzled. Sadie was immediately rendered speechless. All she could do was say to Gully, "Zhou Wen naturally isn't Count of the Wind's master. The other person isn't Primordial Sword Immortal's master either. Just like us, they watched the battle between Primordial Sword Immortal and Count of the Wind, and learned Primordial Sword Immortal's sword art and Count of the Wind's movement technique. How is it possible to learn sword art and movement technique just by watching a duel? Even you, who have the Eye of Odin, have to analyze and imitate for a long time before you can learn part of it. How long has it been? They've already learned sword techniques and movement techniques. Isn't this too unbelievable?" Gully's eyes widened in disbelief. "It's indeed hard to believe, but they did it." Sadie looked at Zhou Wen and Li Xian with a complicated expression. Before coming to Sunset College, she was very confident that she could defeat Zhou Wen and avenge Lance. However, after coming, Sadie realized that she was far from Zhou Wen's match. Not only was she Zhou Wen's match, but she couldn't even defeat Feng Qiuyan, who claimed to be learning from Zhou Wen. The person fighting Zhou Wen inside was similarly not weaker than her, and that person was clearly not Feng Qiuyan. How many terrifying geniuses are hidden in Sunset College? Sadie's expression was extremely complicated. The more she watched the battle between the two, the more terrifying she found it. Although Li Xian's sword techniques and Zhou Wen's movement techniques weren't at the level of Primordial Sword Immortal and Count of the Wind, they already possessed the charm of both. They had truly comprehended the true meaning of sword techniques and movement techniques, and it wasn't just pure imitation. Bang! The practiced sword in Li Xian's hand exploded as it couldn't withstand the powerful sword aura. The two of them had no choice but to stop. "Old Zhou, are you still training?" Li Xian retracted his life soul and revealed his true body. Gully and Sadie widened their eyes. They never expected that the person who used such a sword technique was the usually frivolous scion, Li Xian. "Forget it. It's boring. I'm not training," Zhou said with a shake of his head. Zhou already understood the profundities of movement techniques and sword techniques. However, it was useless to just imitate them. He needed to truly integrate movement techniques and sword techniques into his own system to be useful. And this wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. He needed time to think. Sadie and Gully clearly misunderstood Zhou Wen's meaning. They thought that Zhou Wen was saying that the sword technique and movement technique were too simple, so he found it boring. If someone else had said that, Sadie and Gully would have thought that they were arrogant and ignorant. However, Zhou Wen had only watched the battle between Count of the Wind and Primordial Sword Immortal. In such a short period of time, he had already comprehended the charm of Count of the Wind's movement technique. It wasn't too much to say anything to such a genius. Seeing that the two of them were about to come out, Sadie and Gully hurriedly hid to the side. After the two of them walked out of the training grounds, Sadie said, "Sunset College is really filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers, especially the Xianwen Club. I never expected that Li Xian, who usually doesn't look serious, to actually have such strength and talent. In the past, when we were in the North District, we were really frogs in a well. We underestimated the young people outside the six families. However, Zhou Wen, Feng Qiuyan, and Li Xian aren't any weaker than the top geniuses of our six families. I wonder how many more such geniuses there are in Sunset College. They are indeed too strong. It's the right decision to come this time. With such opponents, I believe we can improve faster," Gully said excitedly. However, Sadie nodded with a heavy expression. In the past, the Federation had geniuses from the six families, but with the development of the times, more and more geniuses from ordinary families appeared. The influence of the six families was gradually declining. After this battle, the various media outlets gave a slow-motion video of the battle. Furthermore, there were professional analysis and commentary, making people watch with relish. The popularity of the battle between Tyrant Behemoth and Orochi had been completely overshadowed. Although Tyrant Behemoth was strong, it lacked intelligence. Its battle with Orochi was too simple and crude. It was far less exciting than the battle between Primordial Sword Immortal and Count of the Wind. Everyone was discussing who would be stronger if Count of the Wind and Primordial Sword Immortal fought to the end. Some people supported Count of the Wind, but more people believed that Primordial Sword Immortal was still the strongest. Otherwise, why would Count of the Wind admit defeat? The other families understood what the Xia family meant. Their Xia family had already probed Primordial Sword Immortal's strength, so they probably wouldn't take action for the time being. The rest would depend on them. Including the overseas devils and the six families, the various factions were analyzing the abilities of Primordial Sword Immortal and Count of the Wind. They were already eager to give it a try. Now, apart from not knowing what Primordial Sword Immortal's Wheel of Destiny was, Primordial Sword Immortal's abilities had basically been analyzed. Furthermore, according to various inferences, Primordial Sword Immortal's Wheel of Destiny was very likely an attack-type miracle. On this basis, the various families had come up with a strategy to deal with it. It was only a matter of time before they challenged Primordial Sword Immortal's #1 spot. Zhou Wen didn't idle either. When he returned, he had already told Ensheng about his encounter with Chu He in Netherworld City and asked him to help investigate Chu He and his family. Ensheng placed great importance on this matter and personally went to Chu He's hometown. Now, there was finally news from Ensheng's side. According to Ensheng's investigations, Chu He's wife and daughter had always believed that Chu He had gone to Zhuolu. They had no idea that Chu He had gone to the desert. Furthermore, ever since Chu He left home for Zhuolu, he had never contacted them. He didn't speak to them, nor did he write them letters. After various investigations, Ensheng came to the conclusion that Chu He had gone to Zhuolu and hadn't gone to the desert at all. Chapter 663. Are you saying that the Chu He I met in Netherworld City is a fake? Zhou Wen said, after some thought. No, it's the opposite. I think the Chu He who went to Zhuolu is an imposter, Ensheng said with certainty. From the information we obtained, everything about the Chu He who went to Zhuolu is perfect, but this makes me feel that something's amiss. After a pause, Ensheng continued. According to my investigations, Professor Chu He had indeed studied the Taklamakan in the past. In the beginning, he had indeed rejected the expedition team's invitation, but for some unknown reason, he later agreed to the invitation. From then on, he went to Zhuolu, but during his time in Zhuolu, he never contacted his family. This makes me feel that something's amiss. In other words, someone really did something to it? Zhou Wen asked. I can't be sure yet. If there's really someone behind it, then this faction must be no trifling matter. The other party did it too cleanly. There was no problem at all. If you hadn't encountered the already dead Chu He in Netherworld City, I'm afraid no one would have thought that the Chu He who went to Zhualu was actually an imposter, and Sheng said. How are Chu He's wife and daughter? Zhou Wen asked. After we investigated, their situation became very dangerous. To ensure their safety, I've already brought them back, and Sheng said. From Sheng's tone, Zhou Wen knew that Sheng must have used some extreme means. If possible, take good care of them. As long as it's not an unreasonable request, try your best to satisfy them. I'll be responsible for all the expenses, Zhou Wen said. Don't worry. They have already been brought into the manor by Madame. Madame values them very much, and Sheng said. That's good. Zhou Wen knew that Ouyang Lan was as concerned about the former principal as he was. Since Chu Yi's wife and daughter were with her, Ouyang Lan definitely wouldn't let anything happen to them. After ending the call with Sheng, Zhou Wen thought about what else he could do. I'm far inferior to Sheng in investigating these matters. It's useless even if I go. If someone really did something behind the scenes, they must be quite powerful to be able to do it so flawlessly. Even if I really investigate the truth, I'll need powerful forces to resolve the problem. I'll raise my strength first. Zhou Wen felt that what he needed to do the most now was to make himself stronger. Ding! After grinding the metalwork temple dungeon, another golden battle god halberd dropped. Just how easy is it to get this thing? This is already the 4th round. Zhou Wen was somewhat speechless. However, having an additional mythical companion beast was also an increase in combat strength. If he really obtained hundreds of golden battle god halberds, he might be able to flatten the 6 families of the Federation with just the golden battle god halberd. Just as he was about to continue grinding, his phone rang. He opened it and saw that it was from the Arch. Let's make a deal. Are you interested? What deal? Zhou Wen replied. I can let you obtain a companion beast. That companion beast can help you defeat Primordial Sword Immortal and Count of the Wind. But in exchange, you have to give the divine fruit to me after you obtain it. The Arch sent another message. What other benefits do I get if I give you the divine fruit? Zhou Wen asked. You obtained a companion beast that can help you defeat Primordial Sword Immortal. Isn't that enough? The Arch said. What kind of companion beast is it? Zhou Wen asked. Come to Chess Mountain. You'll naturally know when you get it, the Arch said. Don't tell me you want me to enter Dear Terra's Pavilion again? Zhou Wen deliberately sent a message in an unwilling tone. In fact, Zhou Wen also wanted to enter Dear Terra's Pavilion. In-game, he could only enter the ancient building on Dear Terra's Pavilion, but he couldn't enter the platform below. Now, Zhou Wen really wanted to know what other way to enter Dear Terra's Pavilion other than the gap in reality. How can you obtain benefits if you don't enter Dear Terra's Pavilion? The Arch said. It's too disgusting to enter Dear Terra's Pavilion from underwater. Is there no other way to enter? Zhou Wen wanted to figure out the way to enter Dear Terra's Pavilion so that he didn't have to trade with the Arch. To his surprise, the Arch was very tight-lipped. She only replied, Don't worry. I'll let you enter Dear Terra's Pavilion easily this time. Zhou Wen asked a few more questions, but the Arch didn't say anything. She only said that he would know when the time came. Zhou Wen was somewhat hesitant. He naturally wanted a companion beast that could defeat Primordial Sword Immortal, but he was somewhat unwilling to take the risk in Dear Terra's Pavilion in reality. The Arch was just too mysterious. Zhou Wen didn't wish to have too much contact with her. Forget it, I'm not going. Even without the Thearcha's companion beast, I still have a chance of defeating Primordial Sword Immortal. Zhou Wen had carefully studied the battle between Count of the Wind and Primordial Sword Immortal. Tyrant Behemoth still had a chance of defeating Primordial Sword Immortal, but the premise was that Primordial Sword Immortal's Wheel of Destiny couldn't kill Tyrant Behemoth. As he was pondering, he suddenly felt a fluctuation in the chaos space. Could it be that Explosive Fiend Man has completed its evolution? Zhou Wen hurriedly checked the chaos space. He realized that Explosive Fiend Man hadn't completed its evolution. It was still in an egg state. That fluctuation was actually coming from the metal walnut. The little beast had been chewing on the metal walnut. After so long, it left a deep bite mark on the metal walnut. From a spot it had bitten through, the metal walnut seemed to have been bitten through. A crack as thick as a strand of hair had appeared, revealing a smear of white under the crack. As for the fluctuations Zhou Wen felt, they came from the metal walnut. The fluctuations seemed to be at the level of consciousness. Zhou Wen actually felt that it was seeking help from him. Could it be that there's a dimensional creature in this metal walnut? Zhou Wen took the metal walnut out of the chaos space. The little beast relentlessly lay on the metal walnut and gnawed at it. It looked like it wouldn't stop until it ate through the metal walnut. Zhou Wen used his hand to pull it, but its claws gripped the metal walnut tightly, refusing to let go. Zhou Wen had no choice but to knock it unconscious. After the little beast fainted, its tiny claws refused to let go. Zhou Wen had no choice but to allow it to grab the metal walnut as he reached out to touch the crack that had been bitten open by the little beast. A white substance was revealed from the crack. Zhou Wen touched it and immediately felt his essence energy flow into the metal walnut. The feeling was similar to hatching a companion egg. The thing inside the metal walnut is actually a companion egg? Zhou Wen was alarmed as he allowed the metal walnut to absorb his essence energy. Chapter 664. Crack. As the essence energy was absorbed, the metal walnut's outer shell split into two along the gap. A white ball-shaped object rolled out and transformed into a stream of light that shot towards Zhou Wen's body, turning into a white dot-shaped tattoo. Summoning the companion beast, it was about the size of a rugby ball. He pinched it in his hand. It was soft and bouncy, similar to a bouncing ball. It might even be softer. With a casual pinch, the companion beast was pinched into all sorts of strange shapes. Once he released his grip, it would return to its original state. This companion beast is quite fun. I wonder what use it has. Zhou Wen was somewhat puzzled when he didn't receive any information about the companion beast. Typically, after contracting a companion beast, one would receive some vague information, such as the companion egg's name, level, etc. However, this one didn't have any of that. All Zhou Wen could do was take out his phone to read its information. He thought to himself, such a special companion beast must have a very special ability, right? However, the amount of essence energy it absorbs is rather small. Its level shouldn't be high. After finding the white companion beast, he clicked open its information. Zhou Wen was petrified when he saw it. Tai Sui, mortal stage, evolvable, strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, 11 essence energy, 11 talent skill. Earth escape companion form. Mimicry F *CK. This darn thing is Tai Sui. Zhou Wen felt so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have been so despicable. He could have just let the little beast eat it. Thankfully, it's only at the mortal stage. It doesn't seem to have any life providences or skills like Jinx's master or misfortune. Zhou Wen carefully read Tai Sui's introduction and realized that it wasn't as bad as he imagined. However, Tai Sui could actually evolve. This was basically a mythical companion beast patent. If it evolved, he wondered if it would have abilities like Jinx's master or misfortune. I used to read on the internet that Tai Sui has a life providence like misfortune or misfortune. However, the photos of Tai Sui companion beasts taken online are a little different from this. Zhou Wen searched for pictures online and compared them with the Tai Sui in front of him. Indeed, they were somewhat different. Those Tai Sui looked very ugly. Furthermore, they were black and yellow, unlike Zhou Wen's. They were smooth and tender, looking like white jade. It's also possible that my Tai Sui is different from theirs. It doesn't carry bad luck, Zhou Wen thought. Tai Sui was bouncing on the ground like a white bouncing ball that could jump on its own. It was fleshy and very interesting. Just as Zhou Wen was looking at Tai Sui, the tiny beast woke up. It got up and saw the two halves of the metal walnut on the ground. It immediately rushed over. However, when it realized that there was nothing inside, it was immediately stunned. It turned its head and saw Tai Sui in front of Zhou Wen. It immediately pounced over. Tai Sui seemed a little afraid of it, as it immediately jumped behind Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen reached out to grab the fur on the beast's back, and held it in front of him. The beast flailed its claws as though it wanted to fight Zhou to the death. However, its claws were just too short. No matter how hard it tried, it couldn't touch Zhou. Come, be good. This is for you to eat. If you don't eat it, what about this? Zhou took out some things to coax the tiny beast. Finally, when Zhou gave it an epic companion egg, the tiny beast angrily sprawled over and gnawed at the companion egg. As it gnawed, it glared at Zhou and Tai Sui as though it was indignant. Zhou fed some companion eggs to Tai Sui. Tai Sui didn't reject them, but its eating speed was very slow. Its body wrapped around the companion egg like liquid. It didn't seem to digest it even after half a day. He then tried Tai Sui's earth escape ability and realized that it was really useful. As long as it touched the ground, it could instantly escape anywhere. However, as Tai Sui's level was still too low, it couldn't escape too far. As for its companion form, it was somewhat magical. It could simulate the companion form of other companion beasts. It could transform into armor, weapons, and so on. It could even simulate the appearance of companion beasts. However, it only simulated its appearance. Its essence didn't change, nor did it possess the abilities of other companion beasts. It looked like a rubber toy. Although Tai Sui doesn't have a legendary bad luck, it doesn't seem to be of much use. Seeing that Tai Sui was useless, Zhou let it slowly eat and evolve to see if it would be of any use in the future. Young Master Wen, are you on campus? And Sheng called. Yes, Zhou answered. It's best you don't leave campus for the next few days, and Sheng said. Did something happen? Zhou was somewhat puzzled. Recently, Dragon Gate Grotto has been a little abnormal. According to Chancellor Lung's judgment, there might be a large-scale breakout of Dragon Gate Grotto. When the time comes, we will do our best to prevent the breakout creatures from rushing into the city. As we don't know how many breakout creatures will appear, we might need your help just in case. And Shang said, All right, I'll be staying on campus for the next few days. After a pause, Zhou asked, Does this mean that the other dimensional zones will also undergo large-scale breakouts? We're keeping a close watch. From the looks of it, we haven't discovered any similar situations. The situation in Dragon Gate Grotto has changed. It might be because something special is affecting them. And Shang said, According to Chancellor Lung, some of the breakout creatures outside have also come to Dragon Gate Grotto. It's unknown what's attracting them. When Zhou heard this, he immediately thought of the golden bird above Dragon Gate Grotto. Back then, it was Chancellor Lung who personally appeared to make the golden bird retreat. Not long after Zhou received the news, Dragon Gate Grotto was sealed off by the army. 2 days later, the school held a mobilization meeting. The students were also assigned some logistical work to assist the army in preventing a large-scale breakout. The atmosphere in the entire school became abnormally tense. Zhou, Li Xian, and company were assigned work. In such a critical period, no one could stay out of it. That night, a cow-like roar suddenly sounded from Dragon Gate Grotto. The sound was soul-stirring. The ground near Dragon Gate Grotto trembled as though there was a slight earthquake. The roar lasted for an entire night, but nothing came out. However, this cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. This was because they were certain that something was really going to happen to Dragon Gate Grotto. Old Zhou, if all these dimensional zones are destroyed, do you think our Luoyang can still defend it? Li Xian asked Zhou as he moved the supplies. I'm afraid I can't defend it. Zhou knew very well that humans were much weaker than dimensional creatures. It looked like there were 100 mythical companion beasts on the list, but the mythical creatures in the dimensional zones were far more than that. There might be hundreds or even thousands of times more. Zhou even suspected that there were even more terrifying existences above the mythical stage. Otherwise, Torch Dragon wouldn't have the ability to evolve among its stats. So Gu. Chapter 665. For the next few days, many strange things happened in Dragon Gate Grotto. A Buddha shed tears of blood for no reason. After careful inspection, he realized that a crack had appeared on the Buddha's eye at some point in time. Red spring water gushed out from within. In the river beside Dragon Gate Grotto, there was a creature that resembled a WIRM. Just its back alone was dozens of meters long. It was extremely terrifying. In a Buddhist temple, Buddhistic light shone. Using binoculars to observe, one saw a skeleton dressed in monk robes sitting in the temple hall. Every inch of the skeleton emitted Buddhistic light. The entire Dragon Gate Grotto was filled with strange sights. The military had completely sealed off the nearby area. The side of the college near Dragon Gate Grotto had been emptied. The matter at Dragon Gate Grotto seemed to be more terrifying than imagined. Strongmen and stone beasts had already begun walking out of the grotto. Many of these strongmen and stone beasts were the usual targets of the students. Most of them were at the mortal and legendary stage. However, there was a strange halo enveloping their bodies. Their strength and speed increased greatly. The strength they produced at the mortal stage could reach the peak of the mortal stage. At the legendary stage, they could produce strength at the peak of the legendary stage. There were also flying beasts and fairies circling above Dragon Gate Grotto, making the originally mysterious grotto even more bizarre and dazzling. Any dimensional creature that stepped out of the defense line was killed by the soldiers. However, the situation worsened. Every day, more dimensional creatures appeared than the day before. Boom! Boom! Zhou Wan, Li Xian, and Feng Xiuyan were in charge of transporting the ammunition to the front lines. This was a mission Sheng had specially arranged for them to make it convenient for them to participate in the battle in time. The tutors of the college were also prepared. When the battle really broke out, these epic tutors would be important combat strength. Qin Wufu had already personally arrived at the battlefield to command, but he still hadn't seen in Tianzhua. Young Master One, you have to be careful. The anomaly at Dragon Gate Grotto is too terrifying. There might be a fierce battle when the time comes. And Sheng exhorted Zhou Wan and company with a solemn expression after arriving at the battlefield. Zhou Wan was somewhat alarmed, and Sheng knew that he had several mythical companion beasts. Even so, he had solemnly exhorted him to be careful. It was obvious that this was extremely terrifying. Li Xian said, "Why don't I see the overseer?" And Sheng sighed and said, "The overseer has convened a meeting with the aristocratic families of Luoyang and is mobilizing them to participate in the battle." Didn't it go well? Zhou Wan knew that things weren't going well from Sheng's expression. And Sheng said, "Sunset College is closest to Dragon Gate Grotto, and Sunset College has always been led by the Yin family. They feel that they are helping the Yin family, so they are very unwilling. Don't they know that once Sunset College is lost, all of Luoyang will suffer?" Zhou Wan frowned. Even someone like him, who had a bad relationship with Tianzhua, had participated in this battle. This was because he knew that this wasn't just the Yin family's matter. It concerned the survival of all of Luoyang. Some people have already planned on leaving Luoyang to seek refuge. And Sheng said, "Fleeing without a fight? Can those people even abandon their hometowns?" Feng Xiuyan said with a frown, "This is also human nature. If they can defend it, they will naturally come back. If they can't defend it, they will preserve their strength and wealth and can still live freely in other cities. However, it will be hard on the ordinary citizens. When the time comes, only death awaits them." And Sheng said, "How's the situation at home?" Li Xian hadn't received any notification from his family, so he didn't know what was going on at home. Old Master Li hasn't expressed his stance, but he hasn't left Luoyang either. It seems like he's still observing, and Sheng answered, "Adjutant, I don't like what you said." When they suddenly heard someone speak, they turned their heads and saw Li Mabai leading more than 10 people over under the lead of a soldier. "Second Young Master Li, you are finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time." And Sheng saw Li Mabai and the people behind him. "All the epic experts that the Li family can produce are here, including me. They are at the overseer's disposal," Li Mabai said. "If the Li family is willing to help, why isn't old Master Li willing to speak up for the overseer at the meeting?" And Sheng asked. Li Mabai smiled and said, "Our Li family is willing to fight to protect Luoyang. That's our family's decision, but we can't stop other families from seeking a way out." And Shang immediately understood what he meant and could only shake his head and sigh helplessly. From this, it could be seen that very few famous families in Luoyang were willing to participate in the battle. Second young master, please follow me here. After the registration, Governor Qin will make the arrangements, and Shang said as he prepared to lead them to the registration. Second brother, Li Xian called out with a strange expression when he saw Li Mabai look at him. Li Mabai said indifferently, "You don't have to speak to me with such an attitude. I've never taken you seriously. Among the three brothers of the Li family, I, Li Mabai, only recognize one elder brother. I gave you the evil king, Gu, only to use you as a tool for revenge. Since you aren't even a tool, there's no value in using you. Do whatever you want." With that said, Li Mabai left with Shang with his men. Li Xian gritted his teeth and didn't say a word. All he did was clench his fists. Zhou Wen patted Li Xian on the shoulder. Li Xian relaxed and shook his head. "Don't worry. I know what I should do. I won't lose myself because of his words." For the next 2 days, Luoyang's tycoons sent people to participate in the battle. However, most of them only sent 1 or 2 epic experts. Apart from the Li family, there were only 2 families that invested a large number of combat forces. As Zhou Wen and company were loading the supplies, they suddenly heard an ear-piercing alarm. All the soldiers quickly ran to their posts before they heard the rumbling of cannons and gunshots. Zhou Wen and company pushed the supplies to the front lines and saw a large number of stone beasts and warriors rushing out from Dragon Gate Grotto. There were also a sizable number of flying beasts flying in the air. The tidal wave of dimensional creatures rushed towards the fortifications. The soldiers followed the orders and kept shooting. Seeing the dimensional creatures fall one by one, more dimensional creatures rushed over. Boom! A cannonball exploded in front of the Golden Warrior, but it failed to kill it. It charged over with the fragments of the cannonball and ferociously pounced at the soldiers in the trenches. The soldier didn't retreat. He summoned a companion beast battle saber and slashed at the Golden Warrior, forcing it to take 2 steps back. The soldiers beside him fired at the Golden Warrior. The bullets rained down on it, blasting its head apart. A flying beast rushed over from the sky. On the battlefield that was filled with the flames of war, the beautiful figure turned into a killing machine. She elegantly charged into the soldiers, and blood immediately dyed the trenches red. So Gu. Chapter 666. The symphony of death and slaughter played crazily as a rumble resounded through the sky. A 3-headed, 6-armed Vajra that was more than 10 meters tall rushed out of Dragon Gate Grotto. Bullets and cannon fire struck its body, but they were useless. With a wave of the demon fall pestle in its hand, a laser-like beam immediately blasted a huge hole in the defensive fortifications. Several soldiers died on the spot. An epic expert summoned a companion beast to fight. The Vajra fought 1 against 4, suppressing the 4 epic companion beasts into retreat. Boom! Boom! Amidst the tidal wave of stone beasts, Vajras with 3 heads and 6 arms rushed out of Dragon Gate Grotto. Swarms of fairies also flew out in the sky. They were real fairies, not fairy beasts. Among them were black-robed, white-haired mutated fairies, and there were more than 1 or 2 of them. Epic officers, tutors, and members of Luoyang's famous families had already joined the battle. The battlefield was filled with the sounds of killing and explosions as soldiers constantly fell. "Are you interested in warming up?" And Shang wore a smile, but his eyes were extremely cold. "I couldn't ask for more." Feng Qiuyin summoned his saber. "We're waiting." Li Xian summoned his carapace. Zhou gripped the bamboo blade tightly and nodded slightly. He knew that this was really just a warm-up. The truly terrifying thing had yet to appear. And Shang led them to the leftmost side of the defense line. The defense there was the weakest, and the fairies had already charged in many times. "Hold this place. Before the retreat order is issued, don't retreat even if you die," and Shang said to Zhou Wen and company before leaving. The soldiers were crazily facing the dimensional creatures' attacks, but there were still three-headed, six-armed Vajras and fairies charging over. They were something ordinary soldiers couldn't deal with. Bullets imbued with essence gold couldn't penetrate the Vajra's body, nor could they hit the fairies. "Leave the ones in the sky to me. I'll leave the ones on the ground to you." Zhou glanced at the fairies in the sky. They constantly charged down and reaped the lives of soldiers. "All right," Feng Qiuyan and Li Xian responded loudly at the same time before rushing out. Each of them faced a three-headed, six-armed black iron Vajra. When the soldiers saw the two students rush out to block the Vajra, they were pleasantly surprised. They hurriedly opened fire to cover them and clear the ordinary Vajras and stone beasts. A few fairies descended from the sky and flew over. The machine guns on the sentry tower fired at them, but they failed to hit their bodies. Zhou soared into the sky as he unsheathed bamboo blade and slashed out with the demonic astral wheel. The blood-colored demonic astral wheel flashed across the sky, killing several fairies as blood splattered everywhere. The nearby soldiers were first taken aback before they cheered. At the very least, they saw temporary hope. There were still humans who could fight terrifying dimensional creatures. The sounds of gunfire, the roars of dimensional creatures, the long howls of companion beasts, and the tragic screams of death were everywhere. Blood and fire collided everywhere. Zhou constantly killed fairies, losing count of how many he had killed. He was already beginning to feel numb. Usually, he couldn't find so many fairies, but now there were as many fairies as crows in the sky. Feng, and Zhou, and King out. He had suddenly Feng Qiuyan, Li Xian, and company were already covered in blood. It was impossible to tell if the blood on their bodies belonged to them or a dimensional creature. Boom, boom. In the direction of Dragon Gate Grotto, a boulder seemed to explode. On the stone wall, a 1,000-armed Buddha that was more than 10 meters tall glowed with resplendent golden light. It came to life and walked out of the mountain wall. The 1,000-armed Buddha looked extremely strange. Zhou had never seen it before. Its body glowed with a resplendent golden light. It had an ox head and a human body. It had 8 arms and countless arms that resembled a wheel on its back. It looked extremely demonic. An epic companion beast went forward, but the 1,000-armed ox head produced a seal with one hand and shot out a golden beam of light, blasting the epic companion beast apart on the spot. Then the arms behind it raised and produced all sorts of different seals. Golden beams of light crisscrossed, instantly killing the nearby companion beasts and humans. Mythical creature. Zhou's eyes narrowed. A mythical creature had appeared so quickly, and it was so terrifying. The dense barrage of bullets and attacks struck the 1,000-armed ox head's body, but it seemed to itch its golden body. It failed to injure it at all. Even an epic companion beast attack was easily blocked by it. As the 1,000 hands changed, the ground was sliced apart by the crisscrossing golden light. Under the golden light, the tank was sliced into two like paper. Instantly, everyone was horrified. Such an invincible dimensional creature made it impossible for anyone to have the thought of resisting it. Just as Zhou was about to summon the golden overlord sword to slay the 1,000-armed ox head, he saw a figure tear through the air. It was a flying sword that resembled an azure rainbow. The flying sword circled around the 1,000-handed ox head. The 1,000-handed ox head tried to grab it with its hands, but it was unable to do so. Instead, the sword light from the flying sword chopped off its arms one by one. Zhou turned his head to look at the spot where the flying sword had come from and saw a figure standing on the roof. It was none other than Sunset College's chancellor, Lung Zongjing. Zhou saw that although the flying sword had the upper hand, it couldn't slay the 1,000-armed ox head anytime soon. He couldn't help but have an idea as he summoned the golden overlord sword and sneaked behind the 1,000-armed ox head. While the 1,000-armed ox head was distracted by the flying sword, he leaped to the top of its head. The golden overlord sword brought with it a resplendent sword beam as it beheaded the 1,000-armed ox head. Boom! The 1,000-armed ox head's body collapsed to the ground. At the same time it died, the stone beasts, fairies, and Vajras seemed to go crazy as they attacked even more crazily. Lung Zongjing glanced at Zhou Wan and flew the flying sword back. Then, he turned around and sat on a chair. He had no intention of coming down to clean up the battlefield. Zhou Wan naturally didn't stand on ceremony. He went to the thousand-armed ox head's corpse to see if it had left anything good behind. However, before he could reach the thousand-armed ox head's corpse, he saw its body explode. A terrifying shockwave instantly arrived in front of Zhou Wan. Zhou Wan hurriedly summoned the six-winged guardian dragon to block in front of him. The six-winged guardian dragon roared and spewed out dragon breath to block the terrifying shockwave. And at the spot where the thousand-armed ox head's corpse was, a golden bull appeared. A pair of resplendent golden eyes stared straight at him as golden flames spewed out of its nose. Sogu. Chapter 667. Sheng, that student is Zhou Wan. Lung Zongjing sat on a chair in a tall building and surveyed the entire battlefield. His gaze landed on Zhou Wan, who was facing the golden bull, as he asked in Sheng. Yes, Principal. He's our young Master Wan. What do you think of him? And Sheng said respectfully, what a crafty fellow. He actually wants to take advantage of others on the battlefield. He's really greedy, Lung Zongjing said. Young Master Wan only wants to help. He doesn't mean to snatch anything from you. And Sheng hurriedly explained. Lung Zongjing didn't say anything else. It was impossible to tell if he was angry or not from his face. Zhou Wan faced the golden bull head-on and didn't dare be careless. This was a battlefield. If he died, he would die. Therefore, he didn't charge at the golden bull head himself. Instead, he got the six-winged guardian dragon to charge over first. The six-winged guardian dragon wasn't afraid of death. It transformed into a black bolt of lightning and charged over. Its 6 dragon wings slashed at the golden bull like blades. The golden bull was huge, about the same size as a mammoth. It wasn't at a disadvantage against the six-winged guardian dragon. When it saw the six-winged guardian dragon charging over, it roared and lowered its head to slam into it. Boom! Under the terrifying collision, a huge crater formed on the ground. The golden bull and the six-winged guardian dragon were evenly matched. Neither of them retreated. The six-winged front claws grabbed the horns on the golden bull's head as the two monster-like existences were in a stalemate. The golden bull constantly spewed out golden flames from its nose as the dragon wings behind six-winged flapped crazily. However, neither of them had the upper hand. It looked like their strength was about the same. Zhou Wan held the golden overlord sword and was about to slash off the golden bull's head. To his surprise, the golden bull's head suddenly shook. There was a golden bell hanging around its neck. When it shook its head, the golden bell immediately rang. When Zhou Wan heard the sound, he immediately felt his mind go blank. He fell into a momentary daze. The six-winged guardian dragon also seemed to be drunk. Its body staggered as its strength involuntarily dissipated. The golden bull roared as a pair of thick and large golden horns slammed into the six-winged guardian dragon's chest. It pierced through the six-winged guardian dragon's dragon scales and pierced deep into it. Six-winged. Zhou Wan was alarmed as he hurriedly summoned Six-Wing back. Although Six-Wing's combat strength was only considered average among mythical creatures, its life protection was a rare protective wheel of destiny. Furthermore, it had been with Zhou Wan for so long, so he didn't wish to see it die. Six-Wing transformed into a stream of light and returned to Zhou Wan's body, allowing him to heave a sigh of relief. It was fine as long as he wasn't dead. Companion beasts could use their owner's essence energy to slowly recover. Now, Zhou Wan didn't have the time to think too much because the golden bull had already targeted him. Zhou Wan hurriedly retreated and threw out the golden overlord sword. When the bell under the golden bull's neck rang, just now, it actually attacked his and Six-Wing's brains at the same time, causing them to feel dizzy for a moment. If he had rushed up to fight the golden bull just now, he would probably have been killed by the golden bull. Before figuring out what was going on with the bell, Zhou Wan didn't dare approach the golden bull. although releasing Torch Dragon or Tyrant Behemoth should be able to finish off Oxhead. Zhou didn't wish to expose these two trump cards. Seeing Zhou retreat, the Golden Bull immediately rushed forward. It looked like it hated Zhou, who had ambushed it. The Golden Overlord's sword slashed at the Golden Bull in its original state. The Golden Sword Beam was extremely sharp, but the Golden Bull used its horns to block the Golden Overlord sword's attack. It only left a shallow mark on its horns. Zhou was somewhat dumbfounded when he saw this. The Golden Overlord sword had the augmentation of ever victorious and unstoppable, but only left a very shallow mark on the bull's horns. The toughness of the bull's horns was somewhat shocking. Clang, clang, clang. The Golden Overlord sword and the bull's horns constantly collided. The shockwaves produced by the collision shattered everything around them. Even Zhou could only retreat again. The Golden Bull wanted to chase after Zhou, but couldn't escape the Golden Overlord's sword's entanglement. Therefore, it shook its neck again, and the bell on its neck rang again. Zhou was already dozens of meters away from the battlefield. When he heard the bells chime, his brain jolted as he felt a moment of dizziness. Just as he leaped up, he fell from the sky. Thankfully, the dizziness was short. When Zhou reacted, he staggered 2 steps to the ground, but didn't fall. As for a brainless companion beast like the Golden Overlord sword, it also felt dizzy. Caught off guard, it was sent flying by the Golden Bull's horn. The Golden Overlord sword flew out like a meteor and slammed into the stone wall of Dragon Gate Grotto. The sword instantly sank into the stone wall. What exactly is that bell? It actually has such a strange power. I've already used God's Retreat, but it's useless. From the looks of it, it doesn't belong to a nomological power. Could it be a pure audio elemental power? As Zhou retreated, he summoned the Golden Overlord sword back, only to see that there were many cracks on the Golden Overlord sword's blade. Without the Golden Overlord sword holding it back, the Golden Bull roared and charged at Zhou like a golden locomotive that had gone berserk. And Shen wanted to help, but he was stopped by Long Zongjing. Don't be anxious. That punk hasn't used his full strength. Let's continue watching. And Shen also knew that Zhou hadn't used his full strength. After all, Tyrant Behemoth hadn't appeared, but it was best not to expose Tyrant Behemoth. However, Long Zongjing's status was extraordinary, so Shen couldn't contradict him. All he could do was stand by the side and continue watching. Could it be that I can only summon Torch Dragon to deal with it? Zhou charged out of the Golden Bull, but he couldn't think of a way to deal with the bell on its neck. In terms of combat ability, the Golden Bull, 6-winged, and the Golden Overlord sword were about the same, but the bell on its neck was too strange. It made Truth Listener and God's Retreat ineffective. If it's only an audio elemental power, Truth Listener should have reacted. Why isn't there any reaction from Truth Listener? Zhou was depressed. After some thought, Zhou led the Golden Bull closer to Dragon Gate Grotto to avoid implicating the other human soldiers. Seeing that it couldn't catch up to Zhou, the Golden Bull shook its head again. The bell sounded again. This time, Zhou was already prepared. He charged into the sky and switched to the God Fiend Era Essence Energy Art. He felt dizzy again, but due to the God Fiend Era's spatial powers, Zhou remained floating in the air and didn't fall. Seeing that Zhou hadn't fallen, the Golden Bull leaped up and charged at Zhou like a huge golden cannonball. Chapter 668. Zhou had already recovered from his dizziness. Seeing that the Golden Bull had already rushed in front of him, he hurriedly flew higher. Boom! The power of the Golden Bull's leap was exhausted. Its body fell down and landed heavily on the ground, creating a large pit in the ground. This fellow actually doesn't know how to fly? Zhou was overjoyed. He pulled out his bamboo blade and slashed out the demonic astral wheel at the Golden Bull below. The Golden Bull's horns shattered the demonic astral wheel. It roared again and leaped up, slamming into Zhou in midair. Zhou hurriedly flew higher, preventing the Golden Bull from touching him before landing on the ground. Zhou knew the maxim of guerrilla warfare: when the enemy advanced and when the enemy retreated. Just as the golden bull landed, he rushed down again. He slashed out the demonic astral wheel with his bamboo blade at the golden bull. The golden bull was infuriated. After landing, it leaped up again and rang the bell in midair. However, Zhou had already flown to a high altitude. Although his head was dizzy, he didn't fall. The golden bull couldn't jump high enough to touch him. Zhou's heart stirred. As he engaged in guerrilla warfare with the golden bull, he lured the enraged golden bull towards the dimensional creatures in Dragon Gate Grotto. When the enraged golden bull landed, it immediately trampled many dimensional creatures to death. When it rang the bell, the dimensional creatures within 100 meters would also be affected, causing them to feel momentarily dizzy. As a result, the dimensional creatures' attacks slowed down significantly, greatly reducing the pressure on the frontline soldiers. Zhou lured the golden bull to charge through the monster horde, causing great chaos. A large number of fairies charged at Zhou as he held the bamboo blade in one hand and the overlord sword in the other. Wherever the saber beams and sword beams passed, blood splattered everywhere, causing chaos in the dimensional creature horde. When the soldiers who were engaged in an intense firefight saw someone charge into the dimensional creature horde alone and turn the world upside down as though there was no one around, the blood in their bodies seemed to boil as their firepower became much more ferocious. Many of the epic officers and tutors who were fighting felt their spirits lift as they felt the pressure lessen significantly. Zhou lured the golden bull into charging through the dimensional horde, but he failed to find a way to crack the bell. Thankfully, the golden bull couldn't fly, so it couldn't threaten his life. The ringing of the bell from time to time only made Zhou momentarily dizzy. Just as the surrounding fairies surrounded him, Zhou woke up. Even if he couldn't wake up in time, he still had the golden overlord sword by his side. No matter how many fairies came, he would slay them with one strike. It's definitely not an audio elemental power. Otherwise, there's no reason why I can't withstand it at all. Even if it's a spatial elemental power, it's impossible for me to not be able to resist at all. Could it be that the power of the bell is actually a direct attack on the soul? Zhou thought as the golden bull went crazy from Zhou's teasing. Dang, dang, dang. The golden bull leaped up and repeatedly rang the bell in midair. Zhou immediately felt as though his brain was about to explode as he hugged his head and groaned in pain. Thankfully, the bell's range was huge. The surrounding fairies were also affected. All of them were in a worse state than Zhou as they screamed and fell from the sky. After the golden bull landed, it took a few steps back and rubbed its hooves on the ground a few times. With a sudden run-up, it leaped up and broke the record. The thick horns on its head slammed into Zhou, who was hugging his head in midair. The bell kept ringing. Zhou felt as though his brain had been struck by a hammer. The pain left his mind blank. However, Zhou also knew that the golden bull would definitely deliver a fatal blow to him at this moment. His willpower was much firmer than the average person's. Furthermore, when he cultivated the Lost Immortal Sutra had been chanting incantations in his ear all day and night, making his mind even more resilient. Under such circumstances, Zhou relied entirely on his willpower to persist and use Lost Country's teleportation ability. Almost at the instant Zhou teleported, the two bodies rushed to where he was. One of the figures was naturally the golden bull, and the other was Li Xian, who was dressed in carapace and had insect wings on his back. Holy sh*T, what's going on? Li Xian had originally rushed over to save Zhou, but to his surprise, Zhou had vanished. The golden bull that charged over furiously slammed into Li Xian. The insect wings on Li Xian's back flapped as he narrowly dodged the golden bull's horn charge. He flipped over and rode on the golden bull's back. He hugged the bull's head and screamed, "Old Zhou, you've caused me trouble. Why didn't you run earlier if you could?" Zhou teleported into the distance and used ghost steps to widen the distance again. When he heard the voice, he turned his head and saw Li Xian sprawled on the golden bull's back, shouting. The golden bull jumped around angrily, hoping to shake Li Xian off, but Li Xian seemed to be glued to the golden bull's back. He couldn't shake him off no matter what. Strangely, the golden bull's bell was useless against him. Li Xian, aren't you afraid of the bull's bell? Zhou asked in surprise. I just find it a little noisy. Nothing else. Quickly think of a way to get me off. Li Xian shouted. I heard that insects don't have brains. Could it be that the bell's power is really a mental attack? That's why it's useless against the brainless Li Xian? Zhou muttered to himself. Of course, Zhou didn't really believe that Li Xian was brainless, but that there was something wrong with his life soul. After all, he had absorbed the evil king Gu life soul. It could be said that it was a fusion of two life souls. It was indeed stronger than the average person's life soul in terms of mental strength. It was very likely that he could withstand the bell's soul-stirring sound. Hold on a little longer. I'll soon think of a way to deal with that golden bull. Seeing that Li Xian's life wasn't in danger for the time being, Zhou didn't immediately rush back. The main reason was that it was useless for him to rush back now unless he summoned companion beasts like Truth Listener, Torch Dragon, and Tyrant. Brother, can you hurry up? I'm a little dizzy from the bull. Li Xian cried out with a sullen expression. He didn't dare get off the bull's back, afraid that he would be killed by the golden bull. When Zhou saw that the golden bull was extremely irritable and didn't chase after him, he immediately had a thought. He gripped the golden overlord's sword tightly and secretly changed directions. The golden overlord's sword and bamboo blade constantly killed, turning the nearby dimensional creatures into rivers of blood. Li Xian, give it some stimulation, Zhou shouted. Li Xian steeled his heart and reached out with both hands to grab the bull's ears. The golden bull was enraged as it suddenly raised its hind hooves and twisted its body in midair, hoping to throw Li Xian away. Zhou finally saw an opportunity and threw the golden overlord's sword out like a javelin. The golden overlord's sword transformed into a golden bolt of lightning. Just as the golden bull raised its hind hooves and swung them in a bid to throw Li Xian off, the sword stabbed over and sliced off a lump of something. Oh! The golden bull's eyes widened to their limits, but its pupils constricted like needles. It opened its mouth and let out a strange scream. So Gu. Chapter 669. After suffering such a heavy injury, the golden bull's strength seemed to vanish. It fell to the ground and howled tragically, as though it had lost the ability to resist. Make way! Zhou roared as he slashed at the golden bull's neck with the bamboo blade in his hand. Li Xian flipped and dodged to the side. The golden bull seemed to be in too much pain and didn't know how to dodge. Zhou's bamboo blade slashed at its neck, producing a metallic clang. A long gash appeared on its neck as blood immediately flowed out. Zhou's other hand had already grabbed the golden overlord sword as he slashed at the golden bull again. The golden bull was completely at Zhou's mercy and didn't know how to resist. Zhou's strike sliced through more than half of its neck. No good. Retreat quickly. Zhou felt a sense of danger when he saw the golden bull emit a strange aura. As he shouted, he flew backward. Li Xian wasn't slow either, but before the two of them could run far, the golden bull's body exploded like a nuclear bomb. The terrifying force destroyed everything within a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Zhou and Li Xian were sent flying by the shockwave and rolled far away before stopping. Their armor was in tatters as blood dyed their backs red. Zhou got up and looked in the direction of the golden bull's self-destruction. He saw a crystal and a companion egg drop on the ground. He couldn't help but be delighted. Ignoring his injuries, Zhou quickly rushed towards the crystal and companion egg. This golden bull was impressive. It dropped 2 items at once. It was really impressive. Furthermore, its bell had a strange power. If he could hatch such a golden bull as a pet, it would be quite useful. However, before Zhou could reach the companion egg, he saw a white figure flash past. Then, the golden bull companion egg on the ground vanished. Zhou hurriedly turned his head and saw a white parrot flying through the air with its claws. Its speed was astonishing. In an instant, It had already flown to the top of the building and landed on Lung Zongjing's shoulder. The companion egg in its claws also landed in Lung Zongjing's hand. Lung Zongjing held the companion egg in his hand as he looked at Zhou Wan with a faint smile. His eyes seemed to say, "Since you robbed me once, I'll rob you too." What kind of principle is this? Is he so petty? Zhou Wan mumbled inwardly as he rushed over to pluck the dimensional crystal. The dimensional crystal was like a golden crystal with a bull shadow inside. It was clearly a primordial energy skill crystal. Although he didn't obtain the companion egg, obtaining the primordial energy skill crystal was a form of consolation. Once the golden bull died, the humans began their counterattack. The firepower became intense. The human epic experts also used their companion beast to fight, killing dimensional creatures on the spot. As no new dimensional creatures rushed out, the terrifying dimensional creature horde was finally suppressed. All the dimensional creatures that rushed out of Dragon Gate Grotto were killed. Although they had won, there were very few smiles on the people's faces. Many soldiers and officers had been sacrificed, and most people's expressions were very heavy. The soldiers began cleaning up the battlefield. Zhou Wan, Li Xian, and Feng Xiuyan retreated and returned to the temporary encampment to rest. They still had to continue transporting supplies later. Li Xian's injuries had already healed, but Zhou Wan's injuries weren't healed that quickly. Although the wound on his back was no longer bleeding, it was still burning with pain. All he could do was lie in the tent to rest. Feng Xiuyan fell asleep on the blanket in exhaustion. He had killed too many dimensional creatures, and his stamina and primordial energy were severely depleted. Just Dragon Gate Grotto's restriction breaking is already so terrifying. If all the dimensional zones in Luoyang are destroyed, it's unimaginable. Humans will have no chance of survival, Li Xian said. Zhou Wan shared the same sentiments. Up to now, the gap between humans and the dimension was still huge. Old Zhou, do you think there will be any more dimensional creatures rushing out of Dragon Gate Grotto? Li Xian asked again. It's hard to say if they will rush out, but this matter definitely isn't over. The huge golden bird on the mountaintop, the monster in the water, and the skeleton in monk robes in the temple haven't moved yet, Zhou Wan said as he used his phone to take a picture of the primordial energy skill crystal he had just obtained. Great Might Vajra Bull Crystal. Mythical absorption requirements. Constitution. 41. Primordial energy. 41. Buddhist primordial energy art. Zhou Wan looked at the requirements. Although there weren't any special stat requirements, he couldn't meet either of the 241 stat requirements. All he could do was put away the primordial energy crystal. After the battle, Dragon Gate Grotto temporarily calmed down. No dimensional creatures rushed out, so Zhou Wan and company could rest. Young Master One, how are your injuries? I brought you medicine. And Sheng walked in with a smile, holding a small bottle in his hand. There's no need. I'm almost healed. I'll be fine after some rest. Zhou Wan was wearing runic heavy armor back then, so his injuries weren't serious. He just needed some time to recover. After all, he wasn't Li Xian. He didn't have such strong, self-healing abilities. This medicine is good. It'll heal quickly. I'll apply some for you. And Sheng opened the bottle and dripped the liquid onto Zhou Wan's wound. Zhou Wan immediately felt a cooling sensation envelop his wound, making him feel much better. And Sheng applied the medicine evenly on the wound and said, "The three of you showed off your prowess today. Many people in the military are talking about you. You can be considered famous this time. If you wish to enter the Sunset Army in the future, you will definitely receive the support of the soldiers." Zhou Wan didn't say a word. Li Xian said with a smile, "Of course. When I was young, a fortune teller told my fortune. He said that I have the fate of a general and will definitely become a high-ranking official in the future. Third young master, if you wish to enter the Sunset Army, I guarantee you a good spot." And Sheng said, "We'll talk about it when the time comes. There's still 2 to 3 years before graduation," Li Xian said. And Sheng naturally understood that Li Xian was only joking. The Li family might not be willing to let him enter the Sunset Army. Just as Sheng was about to say something, a soldier rushed over and said, "Adjutant in There's a situation at Dragon Gate Grotto. Deputy Governor Cheen invites you over. Do you want us to go with you? Zhou asked. There's no need. Rest. If something really happened, Deputy Governor Cheen wouldn't have the time to get someone to invite me. And Sheng said as he left Zhou Wen's tent. Although Zhou Wen and company didn't go, it didn't take long for them to know what had happened. A strange scene appeared in Dragon Gate Grotto's apothecary cave. Black smoke surged out from it, enveloping the entire entrance of Apothecary Cave. Furthermore, they could hear the screams of wraiths and wraiths in the black smoke. However, that was all. No dimensional creatures rushed out. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.